Mr. Chinedu, help us admit the person. People are there in the waiting room. Mr. Chinedu.
Yes, I can hear you, Olusi.
So I made, okay, thank you very much. All right. Hi, good morning, everyone. You are welcome to this summit. It's an important summit to discuss and to elaborate on Africa's problem. We know that over time we have been having. Okay, thank you very much. So we understand that Africa will be facing a lot of challenges about migration. Nigerians are going to South Africa, they are going to Europe to look for opportunities, looking for green land, okay, green pasture. And we understand that Africa is blessed with natural resources and also human resources. Now, the greatest question is how do we transform these resources into millions of jobs, industry, and shared prosperity? That has been a problem. However, we realize that African scholars, over time, the content of their research is focused on Western agenda. Their research is basically interpreting the continents for the Western scholars, for the Western policymakers. So basically, they are actually working as intelligent uh, collector for the Western establishment. They are not actually researching on the problems that facing Africa at the moment. I'll give an instance. In Lagos, Nigeria, we are reaching out from the Agbero people, we call them NURTW. They've hijacked all the motor parks across Nigeria. However, according to Nigerian constitution, motor parks management is the responsibility of local government. When the motor parks chairman is richer than the local government chairman, you know that something is wrong. And our political scientists, public administrators, and those who read politics, political science, or public administration, they have to be raising concerns about this and suggest to government how to transfer the management of public parks, motor parks, into the hands of the local governments. Local government are not doing their jobs, and all of them wait on the federal government allocation. Things are not working. And even state government we have in Nigeria, they're actually waiting for monthly allocation from federal government. However, state government could start something on their own. They can go to housing estate, they can do businesses to bring money. In Ibadan, where I was born, Obafemi Awolowo, as a premier of Western region, he built Cocoa House. He had multiple businesses that generated money for the government. But our government today in Nigeria, they're only waiting to get money federal allocations. So these are the reasons and some of the challenges that is driving unemployment on the continent. So today's discussion is going to be a powerful one. And for this first session, we're having two powerful speakers from Nigeria and the other person from Nigeria. We have His Excellency Professor Ogunlade Adegoke Taiwo, who is going to be our lead keynote speaker today. And joining him in this first session, we have Chief Frederick Akpeji. He's one of the powerful persons on the continent of Africa who is organizing international conference, investment conference, not just talking, investment conference in Portugal coming up in November. By God's grace, I'll be in Portugal in November as a participant for that conference. And he's going to, I don't want to preempt his presentation. And the point is that his presentation is going to focus on how do we transform this continent. European countries are post-industrial societies. This continent needs to be developed. This continent needs to be transformed. The little we can do is to ask those who are taking our natural resources to their countries to say, come, you have the natural resources. Will you please transform 50% of this thing in this country so that we can transform them for job opportunities for our senior citizens? So without much ado, once again, my name is Olusoji Ajao. I'll be your host today, and I'm the convener of Africa, My Africa. Africa, My Africa is a platform for deal making, matchmaking, and business networking. It's not just for talking, it's for making real life investments. So you come here, we have a conversation, and we see how we can work. Many people want to do business in Africa, but they don't know where to start from. Ambassador Ogunlade too is a business consultant with businesses in 12 African countries. Who's that? Can somebody mute? In 12 African countries. So if you want to run the business in Africa, we have ambassador who will help you to handle that one. He's a Nigerian and also a South African by naturalization. All right. Without much ado, Professor, are you ready? So let me read your citation. After the citation, then we can go ahead with your presentation. Okay. His Excellency Professor Ogunlade Adegoke Taiwo, widely known as Professor Tao, was born on 22nd February 1968 in Ogbomosho, Oyo State, Nigeria. He's a South African citizen by naturalization. I want to emphasize that. He's a South African citizen by naturalization and a highly respected professional in special education or geology. Let me also mention that he read education at University of Ibadan. Me also, I was at University of Ibadan. I read adult education with political science. So two of us, we are from the same alumni. And again, I'm from Ibadan, Oyo State. He is from Ogbomosho. Of course, we are all of us are under Oyo State. All right, let me go ahead. So he is a South African by citizen, by naturalization, and highly respected professional in special education, audiology, philanthropy, ministry, and international business. Professor Tao is married to Dr. Mrs. Susan Ogunlade, and they reside in Johannesburg, South Africa. They are blessed with a daughter, Advocate Thembi Ogunlade. Thembi sounds like a South African name. Professor Tao is a passionate humanitarian, educator, author, business leader, and community advocate who has made significant contributions locally and internationally for over 3 decades, impacting lives across Africa and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, present to you Professor Ogunlade to go ahead with his presentation. Thank you, sir.
Good day to all the viewers, wherever you are joining me. Ladies and gentlemen, and all protocol observed. I welcome all the distinguished VIPs, excellencies, and diplomats currently tuned into this global summit broadcast. I celebrate the convenance of this summit for taking this bold historic step towards engineering a new Africa continent. Well done to you, sir. In particular, I want to acknowledge our esteemed moderator, Mr. Soji Olusoji Ajao. Well done, sir. Well done, sir. Without taking up any more of our valuable time, I will jump straight into my presentation as we examine the broader subject, why Africans lives and how can we build an Africa they choose to stay in. I have subdivided my address into a crucial theme, and I will be talking about the wounded, beloved Africa. Arise, shine, and fight your victory battle. Again, my name is Professor Ogunlade Taiwo, but I am commonly known as Professor Tao. I'm a Nigerian by birth, and I have been a proud South African citizen by naturalization for many years now. I left Nigeria on a professional journey, much like any other young African youth seeking greener pastures abroad. But today, I find myself fulfilling my destiny in South African soil. Consequently, I will be speaking at this Pan-African Summit, drawing from my broad personal knowledge and my international engagement as an honorary professor of international relations. Having had the privilege of traveling to over 30 countries globally, and given my recent engagement in the United Nations Consultative Forum in Geneva in May 2026 for the Inclusion and Empowerment Summit, I welcome you once again to this thought-provoking and interactive summit. We'll be doing it together. Now, without taking up too much of our time, I will kickstart my presentation title as we look into the broader subject again of why Africans live and how we can build an Africa they choose to stay in. Today, we are going to talk about Africa, my Africa. It is a continent that has been wounded, weakened, suppressed, and left languishing in its own self-made prison. This is perhaps going to be the most impactful summit you have ever participated as we expose the weakness and enemies of Africa progress, and as we examine the most challenging and volatile continent in the world called Africa. Sometimes I ask myself, why did God allow me to be born in Africa and not in America or Europe? Because when I look at America and other developed parts of the world, and I look at Africa, I see one continent where people are thinkers and drivers of progress, and another continent where people often seem to oppose and destroy their own kind. For example, while America, Europe, Asia, and other continents focus on invention, empowerment, and the inclusion of their people in governance, I see Africa and its people acting out of division and self-sabotage. We are falling into some of the most miserable and desperate human conditions. And this is the main problem that we are here to discuss and to deliver ourselves from if we can. When we talk about African migration and why people leave, there is no other reason to look for that than what I have just described. Africa has become a hostile continent trapped in division, self-destruction, and disloyalty. Beginning with the family, let's start with the family. People oppose each other's progress in Africa. In our community, we tear one another down. From the government to its citizen, there is a cycle of hostility and destruction. So tell me, why would I stay in a community of hostility if I have the opportunity to go where people are thinkers, lovers, and supporters of success? Africans are haters of each other. Bluntly, I will tell other Africans listening here today that wherever you are, it is a product of your Africa parents and government. Africa parents must be held accountable. Likewise, Africa government for the mass migrations of their people. I will mention briefly today how some African parents have been irresponsible in the way we breed children without taking responsibility for their growth and inclusion in this challenging world. But I will dwell more on the irresponsible governments of Africa, which are primarily responsible for forcing their people to migrate in search of greener pastures. Today, I want to hold our parents, our spiritual leaders, including our pastor, prophet, and imam, all Africa presidents, ministers, senators, local government chairpersons, mayors, prime minister, members of parliament, and even our community councillors accountable. We must also hold our traditional leaders accountable for the whole of Africa, such as the Hobas and Emaya in Nigeria. All these leaders and authorities, they are responsible for the mass migration of African children away from their fatherlands, a land that is supposedly flowing with milk and honey. Truly be told, human being wants to stay and live. No human being wants to stay and live in a den of fire where when they can migrate to a better place. The African continent is blessed with every natural resources you can think of. God has blessed the African continent with everything needed for greatness, just like the Garden of Eden. But corrupt forces are arising in Africa, who are here not only to steal, but to destroy and enslave all of us. This has forced many of us into displacement today, moving from one nation to another, looking for safety, success, breakthrough, and peace, because we have become some of the most restless people and the harshest critics of each other. Look at what happened in January 1983 in Nigeria, where the Ghana must go crisis. And look at what is happening frequently now, 2026, with South Africa's migration and immigration crisis, the xenophobia, the Afrophobia, the attacks, the killings, and the hatred direct to fellow African brothers and sisters. I bet you no rational African patient wants to reside in any part of this continent where they are being harassed, intimidated, and discriminated against just for being a Black migrant. In this Africa we want to live in, however, we can prevent the mass migration of Africa and live in the Africa that we believe in. Or how can we do that? Every one of us today must start by challenging our parents, asking them why they brought us into the world if they could not support us. In other words, let us hold parents accountable for child abuse and neglect as a foundation problem in Africa. This is where our problem started from. The same parental irresponsibility mirror the behaviors of many men and women in power and government today. The irresponsible leadership started from being parents of somebody. Most people in the government are parents to someone like you and me. They started by being irresponsible as parents, then as leaders, and finally as head of government. Next, let us hold every government and policymaker in Africa accountable as the ultimate betrayer of the continent. I am saying this boldly today. Most African government and head of state must be held responsible for the woes and downfall of African generations, both living abroad. They are the ultimate destroyer of Africa and its people. I cry for Africa continents today because God has blessed us with natural wealth, yet we are ruled by leaders full of malice and selfishness. They are heartless and callous. They love power, but they disregard their people and their family while neglecting the cities of the masses. They love to make promises, but they are quick to forget them. Africa government love and enjoy abandoning their people. They have no focus on happiness of their citizens. And as a result, they destroy them. They destroy us. The problem of migration in Africa today is primarily driven by everyday. African men and women are looking for places where they can be accepted, work, and enjoy a good life because our leaders have failed and continue to fail us. We have African leaders who care little about job creation, investment, infrastructure development, healthcare provision, educational advancement, and technological development. Tell me, why would I not yearn and scramble for anywhere I will be accepted, loved, protected, regardless of whether I'm a foreigner or not? What is the way forward to build Africa we choose to stay in? What then is the solution to the mass migration of Africans so we can build the Africa that we want? Migration itself is an integral part of human existence. It should not merely be an exodus of depressed souls, but a tool for human leisures, relaxation, or advancement of entrepreneurial ability. The mindset solution. The time has come when we all must challenge our parents, ask them questions, ask them, why did you treat me with such disregard? The same question must then be posed to our fathers, mothers, uncle, brother, sister, all of our relatives who are in power today. They are parents of somebody who is hearing me today. Minister, mayor, lawmaker, the traditional kings, they are fathers of somebody, someone who is hearing me today. Why do you neglect your people? Why do you fight? Why do you fight your African brothers and sisters with hateful policies that strip them of their human rights and their will to live? This is our collective responsibility and an awakening call to challenge African leadership and the people in power to rise to the plight of their people. This is the time leaders must wake up to the plight of a crying populace. African leaders must be held accountable for the woes of their people. The time has come for all Africa policy to be reformed to favor citizens, promote goodwill, living conditions, and allow peace, coexistence, and prosperity within Africa. Please do not forget on Sunday, tomorrow, and on Friday after Juma service to ask our imam, pastors, and prophets how we have been brainwashed against human capability and our ability to think as industrialists rather than just relying on spirituality. The problems of Africa development are heavily co-compounded by a religious mentality that has subjected many Africans to being a mere prayer and miracle seekers, rather than great thinkers and investors in business or technology. We have been conditioned to be church and mosque goers only, with far less focus on entrepreneurship. What is the way forward for the future, the present, and the now for the Africa that we want to live in? As I'm coming to conclusions soon, I hereby challenge all pre-colonial mentality that are still embedded in our government policies. They must be immediately abolished to allow Africa people to integrate with one another. Free movement and trade migration policies must be carefully implemented to allow for Africa we want to live in. Africa borders and gates must be open to allow free human and trade movement, because most African countries are still living in the madness of pre-colonial border restriction, a practice that is no longer happening in other parts of the world. Why Africa? Why? It is only in Africa that the word visa and permit have become prayer point, because we have become opponents of free movement and open hands towards each other. Africa is making money from visas within our own black population, while Europe and America are building development and progress with open visas and immigration policies within their region. Oh, Africa, I cry for this nation continent. It is only in Africa we are global. Hear this, only in Africa continent, we are global brands like McDonald's, KFC, Chicken Licken, Ubers, and major telecommunication businesses are welcome in some nations, but banned in other nations. Ask yourself why. And bureaucratic policies have destroyed and eaten away all the parts of our nation like a cankerworm. When you go in our continent here, if you are going to Swaziland, the citizen there will say, please buy me chicken licking, because they don't have chicken licking. If you are going to Malawi from South Africa, the Malawian will say, please buy me McDonald's, because they don't have McDonald's. When you get to Zimbabwe, they don't have Uber. What are all this nonsense? What are this nonsense all about? How can I live in this Africa? Tell me, unless we reshape the cruelty to humanity, Africa remains a volatile and poorly managed continent. Before we conclude, let us speak about the realities of the core matter right now. One more point. There is another major problem confronting Africa regarding mass migration. I'm not sure you are ready to hear this. This problem directly affects you and me. It is what I call the international success syndrome, or an international mindset orientation shared by many Africans. The average African youth has conditioned themselves to believing that success can only be achieved in international communities, rather than conditioning their mind to succeed within their local environment, even when there are many opportunities for success in and around their own villages or cities. We have narrowed our definitions of success to traveling abroad. Well, I will not blame them. I think it is high time we began to address our mindset and success mentality, focusing on available local opportunities rather than choosing to be secondary citizen in another advanced country. I submit you. Let all African youth say, I believe I can fly higher in my community, and we can make Africa home worth staying in. I rest my case here today. I see after this summit, a revolution of the mindset must start now with you and me, by first challenging our own success syndrome before we confront our leaders who have subjected their own people to hardship in their land and homes. Wake up, Africa. Wake up, Africa. Let your children live in the Africa we want to live in. God bless Africa. God bless you all. Thank you all for listening.
Very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. That's a brilliant presentation. Thank you so much. Let's appreciate Professor Tao with our clap emoji. Any emoji you like. It's a very vibrant presentation. The Bible says, by their fruit we shall know them. I've not heard him speak like this. And you can see that he's a versatile public speaker. He has visited many countries of the world, making presentations on how to build the continent. And today, I can assure you, we are going to have a fantastic and robust discussion. I was just trying to read some of the points as you are dropping there. You are dropping there. And I believe that maybe after this presentation, we can have a copy of your presentation again to see.
Yes, it will be. I will send you
the
transcript. Yes.
Okay. It's a very rich and robust, and I love that so much. Thank you so much, sir. And one thing I found so much about your presentation is that you speak to the points. You are not just analyzing the problem, You are telling us the way to go. And that's what we find in our academic setting. Our scholars, when they are researching, they analyze the problem. And they say, federal government should. I was talking to a professor from Unilag the other time. We are having conversation. You know what he said to me? He said, federal government should create job. But in your presentation, you go down to that parents. Parents has a response. So everybody, if you have a question, you can ask a question. A summit is a place where we are coming to the solution. So I'm just trying to debrief what Professor presented. Then we can ask a question and contribution. Let everybody have time to make contribution. So this is what my key takeaway here. Number one, we said that, okay, Chief Akweji, we are coming to you. All right, sir. Let me just do that in 1 minute, just to summarize the presentation. One of the things they mentioned is that we have to go back to parents who are raising children they don't cater for. So now, even when the parents abandons their children, transfer the responsibility to government, and government is not responsible, then the child becomes homeless, hustling, the next thing, let me japa to go and survive. And that's a very good point Professor mentioned. And I keep wondering that in overseas, child support is an important matter. If you pregnant a girl and you don't take care, government will hold you responsible. So we have them in Nigeria here. A girl impregnates a guy, impregnates a girl, and leave the guy. So what happened to the guy? The child of that single mother become a homeless person, become a tout, and eventually the person go into the drug or sex trafficking or human trafficking. So that's one point you mentioned. I have not seen a scholar in Nigeria that can raise this issue that when a man impregnates another girl and the girl is not going to school, you have a responsibility to take care of that child. Because when that child is not taken care of, that child will become a miscreant. And when the child is overseas, we create a miscreant in another country. These are the people who come to South Africa who are doing drugs because their parents fail to provide for them. So that's one of the points you mentioned. I'm really keen to that. Then our government, we have to take responsibility. So there was a popular musician in Nigeria, Wasiu Ayinde. He was singing a song. A woman, he had the issue with a relationship with a woman, and the woman got pregnant. The child is old enough, and the guy denied it. They say, I'm not responsible. People now say, okay, why don't you go and do DNA? So these are the issues where we have to take care of. And thank you so much for that, mentioning that. You also said that exodus of depressed soul from your country. Of course, when depressed soul leave your country, go to another country, they are going to depress that, and that's what South Africans are fighting for. That don't give us a break, don't give us a worst people, give us a best. When Nigeria, who is already depressed, enter South Africa, it will transfer, we call it transfer of aggression. Because you are leaving your country because you are frustrated. And you're going to another country, you are going to transfer your aggression to that country of your own country. And that host country is responsible for your frustration. You know, so that's the good point you mentioned. Then miracle seekers, even the pastor, they have responsibility to play in society. Me, I was thinking of that all these churches, assuming that all these mega churches have mega factories. Instead of praying for a church member, God will give you a job. Can you create a job for all the churches? Let them create job for their church members. So mega churches to mega factories, that will go a long way. You mentioned that I key to that. Then one of the things you mentioned is about free movements, colonial mentality. That Africa, when they want to go to one country, they give you huge visa fee. They actually turn it to money making. Nigeria is going to South Africa. You know how much you are going to pay for visa. Even Botswana, this one actually makes me angry that somebody from Botswana cannot have a visa free to South Africa. God, they are in the same region, South Africa development zone. They don't have the same thing. Myself, I was moving to Ghana directly. I have to pass through Togo, from Benin to Togo, from Togo to Ghana. You know what I passed through? I went to as far as Cote d'Ivoire. But let me tell you my friend, each time I get to the border point, I have to start my passport. Why should I have to be paying money for I want to move Nigeria to Togo to Ghana when you can just traverse? A bus can take me from Nigeria in the morning. I'll be in Cote d'Ivoire by evening. And in my past experience, when I was living in France, I moved from France to Italy without any checking of my passport or movement. So those who give us the boundaries, they remove their boundaries. And we, that we inherited the boundaries, we are still holding on to the boundaries.
We are slaves to each other.
That's it. It's a colonial mentality. You mentioned is here. These are techniques and prayer points. Do you know what I mean? So you said when visa becomes a prayer point, so God will give you visa to South Africa, visa to Botswana. So something is this something. And let me get to that one, Professor. You also mentioned that once already get South Africa visa or Botswana visa, they have to go do Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving in the church. Thanksgiving are going to be busy. So something is wrong. I think that is the
did that.
Yeah. So thank you so much. Don't let me waste time again. Chief Apeji is here to make some. Then the last one I need to mention that one again. Is actually one of the key points you mentioned, that international success syndrome. That one eats me. That if I don't travel out, I'm not successful. So they've actually linked traveling out to success. So now your mind is programmed to, I have to travel out to be successful. That what you have within your country, all of you cannot make it successful. So I think you mentioned that one. So definition of success to traveling, we have to look at that. And again, the final thing you mentioned, that revolution of mindset revolution or re-engineering. That look, I want to travel out. Yes, I will travel out, but not to go and be working there. If I travel, I'm going to invest in their country. And maybe, sir, maybe next time you are coming on this program, you are going to tell us how you are able to establish your business in other African countries. You tell us, that's another session on its own.
It's another section.
Another session. You tell us how you started your business in South Africa and how you're able to expand to 12 African countries. Let me give my experience. There was a guy, a lecturer in South Africa. I was having a conversation with him. I said South Africans should be like Nigerian. That it should be going to other African countries and establishing businesses. The guy said, no, that is not supposed to be. I said, how? Because if a South African come to Malawi to start a business, they will welcome you. So thank you very much. We are going to have another special session. Thank you if you have the time. I know you are very busy and you have different international engagement. So I will check. That will be like a mentoring session. So this is my story. I started with one company in South Africa, and I had a company in 12 African countries, including Nigeria. And what you mentioned is that you even have a business in Lagos. So many Africans, when they travel overseas, they live there, they build a house in Nigeria, but you don't have a working business in Nigeria. It's not there.
Yes.
So let me stop at that point.
I will be giving you the strategies of success, even if you are migrating. Because I was not actually coming to South Africa. I was going to Ireland. I was going to Ireland as a speech pathologist, as an audiologist. But I got stranded in South Africa.
Excuse me, sir. Just tell us how to find yourself in South Africa, maybe in 5 minutes before we have that. It's not a way to marry. Did you leave Nigeria? Because now, excuse me, sir, in your presentation, you said we should find opportunities at home. All right? What I'm looking for in Sokoto is your Sokoto. What did you live in the first instance? Then what did you choose South Africa? How did you find yourself in South Africa? Then tell us your transformation, the breakthrough. Because in Nigeria, we say, oh, no one, you have the connection. You know somebody. People even don't believe in God again. That God can change your life. The other time I was chatting with you, say, Soji, that grace, so tell us your story in 1 minute. Where did you live? Then tell us your turning point, how God changed everything. God, look at your background. I can see Donald Trump. I can see Tinubu. I can see Ramaphosa. Is it the mayor of Johannesburg? The one on this side? Beside Ramaphosa. So tell us your story, sir. All right, guys. Why did you leave? Sir, yeah, go ahead. How did you find yourself in South Africa? You are going to Ireland. Oh, yeah, tell us, sir. We are here for this. Yeah, go ahead.
For me or for Dr. Ngozi?
Eh? For you, sir. It's you. You say your plan
Okay.
was to go to Ireland. You find yourself in
What
South
happened?
Africa.
Okay, what happened
Yeah.
was this. I had a publication even before I left Nigeria. I had a conference during the, how many of you remember during the Ikeja bombardment bomb blast?
I was living at that time.
That,
I was living at
that,
Ikeja,
that
yes.
was the first kind of bomb blast experience in Nigeria. Okay. And by then, I was an audiologist. So I organized it. There was a pandemic, there was a crisis, there was fear about. So I organized a conference immediately to alert on the dangers of the noise in that environment and to the people. So in that conference, my paper, the internet was just coming up. We're talking about 30 years now or something like that. So one way or the other, the paper got linked to South Africa Speech and Hearing Association. So they contacted me that they want to publish it in their journal, my paper. I'm not just talking of now. I saw they published the material in the journal. And then they sent me the copy of the journal. Then, not by email, but by post. There was not so much internet. Yeah, but. So then I saw an advert. Audiologists needed in Ireland. I also want to Jackpa now. So I decided to Jackpa from that time to Ireland. But then you say where the problem was then was that I needed to do what we are doing now, video conferencing. There's nothing like video conferencing in Nigeria. Nothing. Like video conferencing with the medical board. I needed to do the video conference with the medical board of Ireland. So my agent said, come to South Africa, and then we're going to do video conferences with Ireland. So I got to South Africa. After the video conferencing, do you know what they said? They said, we can't hear what you are saying. Are you speaking in French? Understand what you are saying? Because I was a champion in Nigeria, but I was a primary school older when I arrived South Africa on video link. They everything I was telling them, like I was just speaking like a kindergarten to their standard. They said, my friend, we don't understand what you are saying. Can you come to Ireland? I said, no, I can't come. And I said, if you can't come, then go back to your country. I said, no, I'm not going back. That was how I decided to stay in South Africa. I decided to pursue my PhD. No money, no friends, no relative. And then I started my life in the street, sleeping in the toilet, sleeping in the bathroom, and then I was a doctor of geology from Nigeria. I became a doctor of road beggar. So with faith, without frustration, without accepting frustration, because South Africa has the tendency to humble you. It's typical among African nations, or even part amongst it, I can say is the humbling nations, even not even America. It will humble you. So if you can survive in South Africa, you can survive anywhere. So that's a long shot of the story. The other story, when you need to get a popcorn, and then we need to have a long section, and then we will throw
Uh,
Netflix.
Netflix series. Thank you very much for this. This one is even fantastic. So if I get the storyline, so that's actually agency. Thank you so much. I love that. And I can see that you are just pushing this. Give me that thing. That kind of authority. So it's about agency. Don't fold your hands. Say one day more. There was a bomb blast in Lagos. You now organize a conference to fit to that thing, and that conference became your leverage. I wrote a paper about what happened. You see that? So taking action. So that's everything. But when you say mindset in the engineering, taking action. You can say, what can I do? Like this conference, for me, my vision is to have a physical conference. I would like no money to do that or solve it. Let's start virtually. One day, we are going to take it further and make it physical event. And what you are doing is what Mr. Frederick is also doing, Chief Frederick Frederick is going to do that again. Thank you so much. So now, to do a video conference to South Africa, is that the storyline? Video conference to South Africa. To go and do video conference in South Africa. That was the intention of doing there. It was interesting. Okay, thank you very much. So
Nigeria was next week. Nigeria was 30 years ago. No video conference.
yes. Okay, that's very interesting. Thank you so much. So I'll get a video conference. You might be to do a bit. Let me just say that that's very interesting. All right, who has another question? Okay, Chief Akeji, can go ahead. Then Dr. Ngozi, let's take Chief Akeji, then Dr. Ngozi can go next.
If we can try to chip in how.
Is it Chinedu? Okay, who is going next? Dr. Chief Akeji?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, go ahead, sir, with your intervention. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say a big thank you to Dr. Taiwo Ogunlade for this very explosive presentation. You know, Dr. Taiwo Ogunlade, you spoke with deep convictions. You spoke like Africa is my territory. Whether I currently live in South Africa and I'm a Nigerian, it doesn't matter. The entire continent is my space. I love that.
Thank you.
Because that's the kind of spirit that I believe we Africans need to have. You know, the typical guy in Poland today believes that the entire Europe belongs to him. The typical guy in France today, in Germany, in Poland, in Portugal, in Spain, in the Netherlands, they believe that the entire Europe, that is their space to play in. You know, and from your presentation today, I think anybody that is listening to you will not mistake that conviction that you have, that is embedded in your presentation. Africa is one state. We can have it on paper and not do anything with it. We can also decide to do something with it, in spite of all of the bottlenecks that face us in terms of travel, visa issues, and what have you. If we decide that, hey, this entire Africa is my space, solutions will begin to pop up. If you keep looking at yourself narrowly as a Nigerian, narrowly as a Ghanaian, narrowly as a Tanzanian, narrowly as an Algerian, there is just so much that you can accomplish. But if you look at the entire continent as this is my space, then you are talking. You know, so I truly admire the way you spoke, the depth of your convictions. I truly admire it. By the time we are done with this summit today, having met already, it's going to be an opportunity for us to discuss more, get to know each other more beyond this summit today. But honestly, my reaction is kudos to you for this presentation. This is the most important conversation that we Africans should always have. That look, your space is not just Sierra Leone alone. Suppose a guy in Sierra Leone has the ambition of Dangote. Sierra Leone cannot create a Dangote refinery. It's too small. That means the Sierra Leonean guy has to look beyond Sierra Leone and put his presence in Nigeria, put his presence in Kenya, put his presence in Tanzania, in Uganda, in Ethiopia, in South Africa, because these are much bigger countries. You know, so I think it's a conversation that we should keep encouraging ourselves to engage in regularly. Thank you so very much again, Dr. Ogunlade. It's my pleasure meeting you. In the course of this program, we are going to interact more. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I like that, what you said. But let me butcher what Chief Frederick said. European man will say Europe is not, they don't think of Europe, they think of the world. They have this expansionist mindset. And that's what Ambassador Tao said. He's actually living it. He's not saying it. So he has company in 12 African countries. That's I said that he's going to tell us that's the story for another day. And that's how we expand. So if what Chief is saying is that if average African person has expansionist mindset, I'm a Nigerian, I can have a business in Togo, Nigeria. So that one will actually expand your course. It's not about, I'm a Nigerian, what can I do to succeed? And for white man, I noticed something about white man. White man believes that they control this world. And I think because Ambassador Tao actually interacted with white people, that's what they want. A white man does not see that my job is to stay in Europe and die in Europe. No. They want to know what is going on in the country. And that's why they pay our scholars to research for them. So most of our scholars, they are researching, interpreting what is going on in Africa for them. They want to know what is going on. When they know what is going on, now they now design a product to profit them. What they're doing when they say this, my first research grant I got in my life, research grant, I got it from the London School of Hygiene. What's that research on? Me, I was the first student in Ibadan. I need money to survive. It's not what I was passionate about. I was doing peace and conflict studies. They said, proposal, history. I said, I'm not an historian. I read education of both sides. So, what's the topic? I now write about Wole, ex inspectors. I just call the topic, faded glory of Wole in Ibadan. How ex inspectors in those days, they used to go to the house. So I listened to the paper because when I was I said, they want to check your kitchen for cholera to prevent the cholera outbreak. I wrote the proposal, I got the grants, but I know in my heart I was not interested in writing about history. I'm more interested about how to solve the problem for this continent. So most of the scholars we see on the continent, and this guy who brought the money from the London School of IG, I got the grant. I went to the field, I did my research, and I submitted their paper. But who benefits? I got the money to survive. But I know that the paper I've written is for them to use. But my paper doesn't bring food to the community. I was interpreting, and I was able to actually, in that paper, argue how really further theory of really with respect to the money environmental sanitations by the soldiers. So soldiers now give us every Saturday environmental sanitation. I read that thing, but I know that it was not my passion. So our scholars are writing papers, researches for them to understand. But are we writing papers on how to develop this continent? So thank you very much. Let's have one or two contributions again before we now call on Chief Frederick for his presentation too.
Okay, thank you, Olusoji. Can I pose to?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Chinedu, go ahead. Thank you.
I want to start by thanking Ambassador Ajao immensely. It was a very insightful speech that he gave us. He opened our mind conversation in a tremendous way. So there was a very important question he posed, and that question is thus: why will I stay in a community of hostility? Why will I stay in a community of hostility? I think that is the underlying question. It is key to this because as human beings, we are utilitarian. We gravitate towards pleasure as against pain. So we always want to look for opportunities where we can alleviate our suffering. And when such opportunities come, seize it. Don't wait, we seize it. And even when it doesn't come, we seek out for it. That is the paradox of the Nigerian society we live in. when we look at this generationally, I want to compare my generation with that of the ambassador. During the days of the ambassador, in their generation, there was a viable meritocratic institution. But in my generation, there seemed to be a total collapse of the meritocratic institution. By the meritocratic institution, I mean, if you had a first class in the generation of the ambassador, you become the golden fish. You don't have a hiding place. Even your university will be seeking out to retain you. Companies will be seeking out for you. Opportunities will be calling from left, right, and center. But today, the reverse is the case. The meritocratic institution has collapsed completely. So you see a first-class candidate, a first-class graduate from an institution, seeking an opportunity within that same institution. The institution that he obtained the first class from would rather prefer some other person with a lower grade who perhaps has one connection or the other with the VC, the dean, etc., etc., or is able to buy the slot for that opportunity. The collapse of the meritocratic. Then, out of frustration, you find that first-class candidate seeking out opportunities elsewhere, probably outside his climb. And in such climes where these meritocratic institutions still operate, are still vibrant, that individual is recognized. Probably in the form of a scholarship, a postgraduate scholarship, then he leaves the Japa syndrome. Or you find a case of a very promising medical practitioner in a hospital doing exceptionally well. But this same hospital doesn't recognize the effort, the input, the work this young enterprising practitioner is putting in. Aristotle said that the basic instinct of man is the quest for recognition. We seek out opportunities for recognition. So in the quest for this recognition, this young medical practitioner begins to look out for other clients where these meritocratic institutions function. And then he gets the opportunity and he leaves. So why will I stay in a community of hostility? I am coming back to where ambassador. Why will I stay in a community of hostility? So until we begin to look at what point did we begin to lose it and begin to retrace our steps? Why is it difficult? Why is it nearly impossible for anyone to achieve anything in Nigeria today on merit? On merit. You cannot become a president on merit. You cannot win the flagship. You can't emerge as a flag bearer of any political party in Nigeria on merit. You cannot even become the chairman of National Union of Road Transport Workers, Ikorodu branch, on merit. Even in your village, you can't even emerge as the traditional ruler of your village on merit. Even in your family, in your own family, in your nuclear family, you can't even emerge on merit. So there is a total collapse of the meritocratic institution, an absolute collapse. Even in your church, you can't even become the bishop on merit. Even the parish priest, you can't become on merit. You must know somebody that knows the cardinal, that knows the pope to become a bishop in your diocese. And somebody that ought to have meritoriously in that position will be robbed of that position. So it is a societal problem. It's a complete problem. And the generation, one thing that is very interesting about my generation that I have tried to juxtapose with the generation of my able ambassador is that one thing about my generation is that we are very resilient. We are very, very, very resilient. And that is why one elderly man in my village said that the people that are being born today, in fact, the people that were born from the 80s till now, were those that died during the Nigerian Civil War. That the head that they used to catch bullets is still the head they are using today. So they don't want to, in Nigeria, they say no grief for anybody, as they say in our local parlance. So this is the generation. They have refused to be frustrated. Since you don't want to give us anything on merit, let's move to where we can be recognized. That quest for recognition. So the JAPA problem will continue unless we look inward and start to address some of these key societal issues. So I am still throwing back the question to Ambassador. How can we rebuild this totally collapsed meritocratic institution? How can we rebuild this now? All right, thank you. I submit.
You are muted, sir. You are muted, Professor.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me put in quickly that it starts from and within ourselves. Ourselves, I mean, from my father, from my mother. Information starts from the reformers. Who are the reformers? The people in politics, in policies. They are parent of somebody. They are father and mother of someone. If you and me are genuinely interested in changing the situation, we must start by challenging our father, our mother in the power, in the corridors of power. Did you see what is happening in Nigeria today, for example? A son of so, a son of a president or a son of the minister is also behaving like a president. How do you expect that person to talk to his father or to his mother that, Dad, this is not good? Because it's enjoying the power. So, sir, honestly speaking, it's going to be a total self-revolution attack until every individual began to see themselves as, being selfless. Then talk to your father, talk to your mother. Daddy, can we change this? Let the wife talk to the husband. Let the husband talk to the wife. Let the student talk to the parent. From there, we begin to see that leaders begin to take responsibility. But without a revolution of mind from individual, we are going nowhere. The fact they love, you see, African leaders love violence. When you are disarray, they were happy. When there is peace, they are not happy. So, sir, we cannot attack leadership. It's not an abstract object. It's individual. They are human beings. And until we appeal to them, there's no change in the country, in the nation of Africa. It's generally. Look, Africa today has 93 years president, 80 years president. Can the children of that papa talk to the father? I said, Dad, step down. You see, so no matter how the whole nation cries, the man is still strong. Generally, it's like that everywhere in Africa. We must arise from self-consciousness of an individualistic approach. That's where we can solve problems.
Okay, thank you very much. I love that. So there's the individual responsibility for that anyway. All right, thank you so very much, sir. So what can you say is space of hostility? And what Mr. Chinedu mentioned is that again, human beings they seek for pleasures. So they look for where they can maximize that pleasure. That's Aristotle that said that. Anyway, I love that perspective as well. All right, thank you very much. Maybe want to give us the closing remark, Ambassador Cow, on your presentation, then we'll move on to Chief Akpeju. All right, sir.
Well, in closing, it's vice versa. I will not stop you from aiming to travel abroad. I will not stop you from being in Nigeria or stay in your continent, wherever you are. What I will say in conclusion is, what are you coming to do, or what are you going to do in another continent that you cannot do in your own continent? A lizard in Zimbabwe is a lizard in America. Maybe the lizard in America enjoy winter. Yeah. So, so before you decide to leave, ask yourself, what am I doing? What am I doing now that I'm not getting, so what I want to go and do in Europe that I will get a result? For example, when I was in Zimbabwe, I'm always been in Zimbabwe, and I ask myself, come on, what is happening to every single Zimbabwean? What are they looking for in America? Because Zimbabwe is like America, spending US dollars. When I see them counting 2,000, 3,000 in the supermarket, I say, wow, this is New York. This is New York. What are they looking for in South Africa or in any other part of the African continent when they can succeed and make that same dollar? Biscuit, banana, $1. Look me here to why are you going to London or to America to go and do odd job where you can easily sell popcorn, 5 or 10 of them in a day and make $10, $20 in a day. Mindset. I will live up to that. What's your mindset? That's my conclusion.
Thank you very much. So let's appreciate him. Thank you so much. I love that. So Zimbabwe now, de facto, they spend dollars.
Yes. Zimbabwe spend dollars. It's dollarized country. If I open my wallet for you now, it's dollars. I don't even have rand because I'm traveling again next few weeks, next few days. It's Uber. Let me tell you, Uber there is $5 from airport to my house.
Which is it in if you compare the cost of translation in the if you take Uber in Zimbabwe or South Africa, which one is cheaper?
You cannot say, because the way they make dollar in Zimbabwe and they spend it there, it's the same way you do in South Africa. It's the same way you make dollar, you spend it in America. You cannot say where. It depends on your lifestyle. Your lifestyle.
Okay.
It all depends on the lifestyle.
Yes. Okay. But is it easier to make more? Why is it that Zimbabweans are coming to South Africa to work and they cannot do business in their own country?
That's the question of what you're talking about, the mindset. That's the question we're talking about, the mindset. Because an average Zimbabwean that is selling sweet and biscuit or groceries, with the old woman where I'm buying my stuff, they make $100 in a day. Only sending groceries on the road. They make $50, $70, $100 in a day, because you can buy something. By the time you go to buy groceries, you spend $10, $20. 10 people patronizing that person in a day. How much is that?
That's 100. I get it. So, sir, you are going to give us presentation of these your Pan-African businesses. So we're happy for that. All right, Chief Frederick, thank you so much again, Professor, for this your brilliant presentation. I love it. And as your presenter, I was like, this man is a well-traveled presenter and speaker, and maybe once you try to contest for election in Nigeria or governor of Oyo State, if you can be a governor of Oyo State, I'm very happy to work with you. But politicians, as Mr. Chinedu said, in politics, they don't look for merits. You have all it takes to be a governor, for instance, even president. But if you want to become politics now, they'll say, who's your godfather? And they say, Ogbomosho. Like me, I'm from Ibadan now. Ibadan people are contesting for governorship. But again, they say, who's your godfather? So that's one thing Mr. Chinedu mentioned, that even in Nigeria, we don't have the competence hierarchy. Okay, this person is competent, put them in place. So people like you, they should be begging you to come and to be a governor. You have this brain, you have the exposure to come and help us to elevate. If you become a governor of Oyo State, for instance, now, I know what you are going to do to transform this. But again, they ask you, who's your godfather? They are not looking at the competence of what you are bringing to the table. They are asking who is one backing you. And that's the problem we are having here. All right. Please, Cedric, are you ready for your presentation? Yeah. Cedric, I hope he's on. Your mic is muted. You can unmute and speak, Chief Frederick. Okay, while Chief Frederick is coming up, then we can go on to Dr. Ngozi. Dr. Ngozi, I didn't have your citation already. I could have read that. Dr. Ngozi, do you have your citation? Or maybe
I read it to you. Yes.
No, you okay, Chief is ready now. Chief Akoji, you can go ahead. Dr. Ngozi, you can send your citation, then I'll read the citation of Chief Frederick now. You can send your citation, I'll read it before your presentation. So I'll do a briefing. Are you sharing your slide, Chief Frederick? Are you sharing your slide? Chief Frederick, are you sharing your slide? Or you want to just have a direct presentation? Yeah. Chief Frederick, can you hear me? Hello? I think he's having network challenge. Chief Frederick, this is how we schedule the presentation. After that, we have Chief Frederick, then thereafter Dr. Ngozi, then Mr. Chinedu will come next. Chief Frederick, can you hear me? Okay, well, we have to move. We have to move now. We come back to that. So let me read the citation of Dr. Ngozi, then we go on to his presentation. Dr. Ngozi is a vibrant scholar. Okay, Chief Frederick is back. Chief Frederick, are you having challenge? Maybe let's have Dr. Ngozi now, then you can come back for your presentation. Sir, can we do that? Chief Frederick. Okay. Let's have Dr. Ngozi now, then come back to Chief Frederick. All right, Dr. Ngozi, this is your brief. I know you don't want to bother out your briefer reach. And before I read the citation, Ambassador Kai, you will notice that this man is actually one of we are learning from you. He following your footprints. This guy published papers. When he published paper, they will invite him as a call. This is where you write it. Never tell us about it. The way you publish paper is become blast, and that paper globalize you. Dr. Ngozi has been a consistent scholar. I know, very brilliant, but Nigerian society refused to recognize his brilliance. The international system recognize him. And that's what Chinedu is talking about. That we don't recognize our best brain. When the best brain now jackpot, you now say brain drain. But there's a small line between brain drain and brain waste. When somebody is brilliant, you cannot give him appointments. You go. You go now. Somebody is brilliant, you don't recognize him and give him a job to keep him in the system. If you go, when the person out there like that's brain waste, white man is taking our brain. Because best brain is not being recognized. If it's not being recognized, that's the brain waste. The intelligent person, they are bringing money to him. You say, research that I will say, I'm waiting for Nigeria to recognize it. I'm waiting for them to give my appointment. You can't keep wasting, because if you are waiting, you are wasting your time. So I'll read a brief profile. What I'm going to read there is not a full-fledged profile, but I'm happy to tell you that this is a scholar who is actually following your footsteps as you publish a paper. This man has been recognized internationally. But our people here, because we don't recognize our best brain, they refuse to give him his due recognition. But me, I know him and I know his work. And again, thank you so much, Dr. Ngozi, because on his table, he has been writing. He says, Soji, if I enter my study now to write paper, I just will research for international community. I only have time for myself. But thank you, Dr. Ngozi, for creating time for this discussion. Thank you. I'll read this profile now. Dr. Ngozi Uzoma is a Nigerian migration scholar, Nigerian migration governance scholar, specializing in EU-Africa migration dynamics, cross-border mobility, return migration, and border governance. So the ambassador, you see that is going to talk about this border migration and all that. So he is a bridging device future leaders fellow, Global Migration Institute, Toronto, Metropolitan University, Canada, and also a researcher at the Center for African Studies, University of Porto in Portugal. You can see now. He's working with 2 international institutions in Canada, in Portugal, living in Nigeria. Yet, UNM, competence PhD in UNM, maybe that will be a story for another day. In UNM, to get job in UNM, you have to pass through, but I don't want to go into that. So, Dr. Ngozi today is going to speak to us about this influence, about migration, understand how people invaded Ceuta. Ceuta is one of the Spanish enclave on the continent. So we're going to speak to that, and that's his area of specialization. Dr. Ngozi, you have to speak. Let me give this floor for you now. Thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Soji. Yeah, thank you, everyone. I'm very delighted to be here. I hope you can hear me very clear. Am I very clear?
Yes, sir. We can hear you clear. Sound clear.
Yeah. My presentation today, I think, do I share the slide? Let me share the slide.
Okay, I can make you a co-host as well. Yeah, okay, yes. Allow. Okay, please do. All right, thank you, sir.
Do you have it now?
Yes, you can share it now. You can share it.
Oh.
Right now, you can share your slide. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you have it now.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. It is the Ceuta paradox, beyond poverty, why Africans live and how we can build an Africa they choose to stay in. That is the theme. And I am Dr. Ngozi Uzoma, as introduced by the moderator. So the question is, if poverty alone drives irregular migration, why do many of the poorest Africans never make the journey? while some migrants are educated, employed, and have families. So center as a location help us to ask this bigger question about why people move. We know that Ceuta is a Spanish exclave in the African continent. It used to be Portuguese territory, and when Portugal and Spain separated, Ceuta decided to stay with Spain, and since then it has been part of Spain, and it is the center of Europe, a clash between European policies on migration and African aspirations. While many Africans try to cross into Europe to have a better life, not because of poverty, because those who are really poor cannot even cross international borders. The maximum place they get to is the capitals, from their rural settings to the capital centers or to the are, relatively educated. Some of them are employed also in Nigeria. If they are from Nigeria or employed in Ghana, they have families, but they still choose to move, not because they are suffering from poverty. So the myth about African migration, Africans migrate because they are poor, is a fallacy. We know that poverty matters, but it does not explain all the factors affecting migration on its own. Migration decisions are shaped by aspirations, opportunities, institutions, and network. Also, international migration requires resources, information, and connections. So, building on The Haag's 2021, which is his article on capabilities and aspirations and capabilities, I approach regular migration as the outcome of an interaction between structural conditions in a country, the migration aspirations of the people, and the capabilities of also the people to possess or to act on this aspiration, and the mobility pathways available to them if they are easy mobility pathways or the migration policies are harsh for them to migrate. So these are the 5 interacting drivers of migration from sub-Saharan African countries into Europe through CETA. As I mentioned before, aspiration is there. We have aspiration and relative deprivation, governance failures, labor market mismatch, social networks, and restrictive migration policies. And we will now handle them one after another. In the case of aspiration and relative deprivation, people compare how they live with that of other people, both in the local settings and also globally. And social media and diaspora connections also make alternative features visible. When people look at the social media, they see what is happening in Canada, what is happening in Germany, and also what is happening in Australia. They compare it with where they are because of all those things they see on social media. Some of them are not really the truth. They might decide to migrate, to go and experience. So it's not only about poverty. Maybe they want to go and experience, they have aspirations, they want to go and explore. The Europeans are also doing like that. They come to Africa to explore. The first time they come here, explorers came here. They just go to explore. Maybe when they travel, they will return. They will not want to stay. This is where the problem of accessibility, the issue of passport accessibility comes in, because the passport of people from sub-Saharan Africans don't have a real good accessibility like those from the Northern Hemisphere. So it's difficult for them also to migrate. So migration then can become a response to block opportunities, not simply low income. We have governance failures in these sub-Saharan African countries. The institutions are weak, which can also make the laws to be poorly implemented, unlawful, or unevenly enforced. You have corruptions in the ministries, in the agencies, in our societies, like the previous interventionist was saying that people in our families, people are, even in our communities, people, meritocracy, people cannot get a higher post because of lack of meritocracy. You know, corruption is one of the contributors of this lack of meritocracy in our society, and limited accountability, which reduces trust in public institutions. And because of this, people migrate because there is no trust in public institutions. You know, poor public services and limited voice can also deepen the frustration of people. And then they use migration as an exit strategy to when they don't have confidence in the system. We also have work opportunities and social network. We have mismatch in the labor market. Many graduates face unemployment or underemployment. Some finish school, they don't have employment, and they start roaming around and engage in motorcycle, commercial motorcycle that we call Okada here. So migration then represents a search for dignity, recognition, and career opportunities. When you have somebody who just finished a PhD in Nigeria or in Ghana that cannot get work, the person might decide to move to France, and where he thinks he can get a job easily, to become a taxi driver. You see, now he's living his status as a PhD holder in Africa, then going to Europe to work probably as something that is related to a laborer. Also, we have social networks, people who have family and friends abroad. You know, these individuals can help them reduce the risk and uncertainties in the forms of migration, in the forms they use to migrate, including providing a soft landing for them immediately they land, providing sometimes documents for them, you know, showing them some pathways through smugglers that they can use to migrate. And the existing migration networks make these migrations self-enforcing. We also have the restrictive migration policies. You know, when regular pathways are limited, people start searching for irregular ways of moving, you know, moving to get their aspiration. Border enforcement can also change routes and strategies rather than remove the desire to move. So it doesn't matter how you enforce your border, what is happening in Ceuta, even on the Spanish side, on the Ceuta side, it is about 600 feet walls. You know, I during one of my interviews in a research I conducted on returnees, Nigerian returnees from North Africa and from Europe, we discovered that some of them, when they pass the walls from the Moroccan side, they also have to pass the wall on the Spanish side. So immediately they jump down, there are dogs or spikes on the ground that is supposed to deter them from even attempting, but they still do it. And when they are caught, they push them back to Spanish agencies, push them back to Moroccan government agencies, who then send them probably down south or out of capital cities and big cities in Morocco, because they don't allow them to stay in Morocco big towns. It's like an answer to them. So they push them to the villages in Morocco to stay. But these people keep trying to move, you know. So the border enforcement with surveillance tools and biometric equipments has not stopped them from moving. It has just changed how they move, you know. So this Celta illustrates the tension between mobility aspiration of African people and European border control. So the stronger the barriers become, the more the question shifts from whether people want to move to how they will try to move. So people will always move. So why Celta matters is that it is more of a border crossing. You know, it is a site where mobility aspirations, as I mentioned before, meet border control. And it brings African aspirations for opportunity and mobility into direct encounter with European migration governance. As I mentioned, the passports of many sub-Saharan Africans have low mobility, access to mobility when compared to those of from the Northern Hemisphere. So, and the CETA case exposes wider inequalities in access to mobility, opportunity, and legal pathways. The challenge is therefore not simply a migration crisis, but a shared governance challenge. How do we build the Africa people choose to live in? We must think about having good governance and accountability. You know, the government must be intentional about this, and we all must also be intentional about how governance is implemented in our country. There must be decent work for people who have graduated from the universities and for our youths, so that they don't engage in irregular migration. And the education they are getting must be connected to the labor market, what is existing in the labor market. They don't just go to school to study, and when they come out, they will not get work. And then there is the issue of regional integration and mobility that's got to do with AU free movement protocols and the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, and also in the sub-regions we have the SADC, and we have the ECOWAS and the ECAS. You know, also there should be safe and legal migration pathways. You know, that we enable people who feel like they want to move, they want to leave their location, to have a safe way to migrate and seek for their aspirations. Because institutions that restore trust and hope will always make people to stay. So, in the note, we saw what happened in Singapore between 1959 and 1990 by Lee Kuan Yew. You know, not only him did that, he did it with his team. And they worked to build an economy and institution that gave people reasons to stay. He didn't just access Singaporeans to stay. So they worked together with policymakers such as Go Kee, who established the economic development body that attracted foreign direct investments, that made people, foreigners who have money to invest in Singapore. So we also, our countries in Africa can do such. We must have some leaders who are passionate about Africa, not only helping the external factors to cut away the mineral resources and the wealth of Africa, you know, and also go there to stash money abroad. We can, if we have good leaders that are really passionate about Africa, development of Africa, they can make this happen. Somebody like Traore, President Traore, what he's doing in Burkina Faso, you know, that is the only person I can single out now. You know, if some African leaders, we have 10 African leaders who can behave like President Traore of Burkina Faso, I think Africa will be a better place, and many Africans will not try to migrate regularly. So at the end, people do not migrate mainly because they are poor. They migrate because they believe their future lies elsewhere, not because they are poor. No, our challenge is to make the future possible here in Africa. Thanks for listening. We can't hear you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Ngozi, for that brilliant presentation. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. It was very insightful. So people don't migrate because they are poor. They migrate because of other problems and all that you mentioned. And when you mentioned some of the drivers of this migration anyway, you mentioned 5 of them, and I was just trying to look at them. I'll briefly look at that. I'll take you through the summary of the presentation. Then if you have questions, you can ask a question of contribution, why I just run through the presentation he made. So migration aspiration, and you mentioned Ibrahim Traore. Let me start with that one. Ibrahim Traore government is not a sustainable government, we know. This is a so after Tauri, what comes next? What next? It's not democracy, which means that, and it's not sustainable. It's a one-man rule. So after Tauri, what about secession? And that's one of the reasons. And again, it's driving a state-led economy. And a state-led economy, we have tried in many parts of the world. What people are looking at is that we let's have a market-led in which private individuals, they be on the forefront of development, not government-led. That's another thing you mentioned. Then good governance and accountability, decent work and youth opportunities, education connected to labor market. That's very cool. There's a disconnect between what our people are learning in the school and what the job market demands. Then regional integration, and I think that's another thing you mentioned here. This after this borderless Africa, I don't think African leaders are ready for that. I'm not sure. Ambassador Carr also mentioned that we need to be able to move. For instance, if I want to go to Zimbabwe, do I need to go to Zimbabwe embassy? And one thing Ambassador said is that Africa is one. We should not have that mindset, oh, I'm in Nigeria. If I say, let me just go to Zimbabwe, let me try my luck. I can find a business there. Is that the Zimbabwe can come to Nigeria. And let me also mention that, Ambassador, to correlate your point, GSM was brought to Nigeria by a Zimbabwe businessman who has his Keynote. I forgot his name now. Actually, he was the first person who made the first GSM call in Nigeria from Zimbabwe. Keynote. And the next person was someone from MTN. Basiliwa, yes. He was the first person. That is how Africa should be. The first person to make a GSM call in Nigeria is from Zimbabwe. Econet. He brought Econet to Nigeria. You can meet, sir. You can meet, Ambassador. You can meet. You can meet, sir. Yes, you can meet. Yes, you want to say something about that?
You're talking about someone that made an impact because he has an insight and he wants something good for the nation.
Yeah.
Do you know that today, even in that Zimbabwe that we are talking about now, only one carrier is being allowed? Econet.
No competitor, no MTN.
MTN. You get there, you've just, and even that Econet, my phone for Zimbabwe, I can't use it here. So I'm out of business. That's how terrible Africans are. I'm out of business when I'm here because I cannot use the phone number in Nigeria, in South Africa, anywhere other than Zimbabwe.
And you have to get Econet. You have to get Econet line. You have to get Econet line.
You have to get Econet.
Mr. Soji, you don't know line. Econet line now.
You don't
know. Can I just
call me here. Yeah.
Talking about telecommunications, you know, if you are crossing from Nigeria now, last time I conducted research from Nigeria to Guinea Conakry. If you cross to Benin Republic, cross to Togo, your MTN will not work again. And when you cross reach Ghana, you have to buy another SIM card. So when you get to all these countries, you are buying SIM card at the border, and the border people at the border, they cheat you, even if it's like $10. Some of them will tell you it's $50, and because you don't have alternative, you want to make calls, you buy. Then you get to Togo border, you buy another line. You get to Aflawo border, you buy another line. You get to Noa border, Lobo border, you buy another one. You get to Lagua border, you buy another one to enter Cote d'Ivoire. Then you go to Balamoya border, you buy another one to enter Guinea Conakry. You know, you buying and buying and buying. Before you find it, you see that your money. You know, so regional integration is going to be difficult. Telecommunication is expensive.
Compare that with Europe, where you can buy one SIM card and operate, and you are moving around. Why?
That's what
happened. They are thinkers. They are selfless.
That's what happens in Europe.
Who did this to Africa?
It's SIM cards.
If I may intervene,
yes.
Yes, right.
if I may intervene, Ralph
Yes.
Mukita, he's the group CEO and president of MTN Group. Ralph Mukita, for the past 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, has been talking about let us harmonize the way we regulate the telecom sector in Africa. That's as key as it is. So, whoever is the CEO of MTN Nigeria is a big guy. Whoever is the CEO of MTN South Africa is a big guy. Whoever is the CEO of MTN Ghana is a big guy. How much more the CEO of the entire MTN group across the entire continent? He has been harping on this. You know,
Yes.
one of the things, because me, I believe in let's look for solutions. At the moment we identify the problem, let's start looking for solutions. Now, we started saying, why don't we convene a forum that is not like a talk shop, a forum that would be not the CEO of the regulators of telecom agencies across the continent, but the senior official of the regulatory agencies that can come together and say, this is what we must do. So that if Dr. Ngozi Uzoma is traveling from Nigeria all the way to Guinea, his MTN will remain on until he gets to Guinea. The interconnect will not fail. Because the moment he gets to Benin Republic, which is the first border crossing, there is an interconnect for him. He can simply switch on to that network because MTN and maybe whoever the network is in Benin Republic, they already have that interconnect. If you want to, you can switch on. As it crosses to Togo, the same thing. As it crosses to Ghana, the same thing. As it crosses to Cote d'Ivoire, the same thing. What am I saying in summary? All of these problems that we have in Africa, they just take people who are ready to solve this problem. That is why I made the comment that I made when Dr. Taiwo Ogunlade spoke. And I said, what you have said, that is the kind of conversation that should be on our mouth as Africans. We keep looking for solutions. This is the problem, this is the problem, this is the problem. So what do we do? So what do we do? So what do we do? Not lamenting on the problem, not harping on the problem forever and ever, but simply saying, what can we do? And most of the time, the solution is not in the hand of government. The solution is in the hand of entrepreneurs. We saw it demonstrated in the last 2 years by Dangote. Nigeria has been trying to refine its petrol. It's been close to, is it 30 years, is it 40 years, maybe more, unsuccessfully. Who has come to refine petrol in Nigeria today? It's the one man. It's an entrepreneur. The airlines that government could not run, Peace Airline has done something fantastic today. It's a one man, it's a human being, it's an entrepreneur, it's not government. It's not the governor of the state, it's not the federal minister, it's not the president of the country. So a lot of these things that are coming up, even Dr. Ngozi Uzoma, I want to ask you, do you know if you take up this challenge that you have experienced, if you just take it up, maybe at the end of the day, you may end up not being the one to provide the solution, but because you have taken it up, maybe it may lead you to someone else that you're going to tell, this is what I experienced on my journey from Nigeria to Guinea. What can we do? If it is your area, what can you do? You know, it is that collaborative effort. Again, that is also the subject of this our seminar today. Because this our seminar today, the theme is connecting Africa, creating opportunities, and building the future. You know, so for me, as far as this summit is concerned, I want us generally to think more in the direction of solutions. Because every solution is actually an opportunity for money. Today, Dangote Group, after borrowing 20 billion to open his refinery, he says he wants to sell 5%. And he says he wants to sell 10% of his refinery. And he wants to sell it for 5 billion naira. And his company is already valued at 40 billion. So whoever brings the solution, of course, will bring opportunity to himself. You know, so that's just my intervention quickly. And then.
Thank you very much. I think that's very insightful that we have to actually solution, we create job and prosperity. So what he said that if I'm using MTN in Nigeria, I'm going to Benin Republic, which is if I'm in Lagos, now if I'm going to Benin, I'll be Benin next 2 hours. Now if I'm going to Brno, I will spend like 8 hours on the journey. However, if once the moment I cross the DO corner, my MTN will not work again. You should work the same provider. They should have this kind of stuff. So again, and that's the point that what Chief Frederick said is that we should look for market-based solution, we individuals. And I'm going to reflect on your solution then anyway, Dr. Ngozi. Some of them is that government, and I think that's actually where the problem. And you mentioned the Ibrahim Tauri. Ibrahim Tauri's solution is good, but for me, is a starting point. We can start with that, but it's not sustainable because it is the people that will build the country, not the government. And I have two examples, like historical examples. In America, we have the story of the men who built America. It's a documentary which has been posted. Now, that documentary says that great men like Rockefeller and Co, they took over the building of the America, laying the foundation for the prospect of America. And again, I'm bringing that on to the quote of J.F. Kennedy, who said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And that's where the mindset comes in. So the mindset is that every Nigerian person should not be talking that government should create jobs. So every Nigerian person should be thinking that what business can I create from my society, from this context? And I think that's actually what I picked up from Ambassador Tao's presentation, when he was talking about when he found himself in South Africa, what can I do now? And again, that was the bomb blast in Lagos. They now organized a conference for that. And that one gave him that platform. So something happened, you took an action. And I think that's the agency of average African. And again, in your research, I love your research anyway, talking about migration aspiration, citing that what's that scholar again? Remember his name? Jahan. I've been following him. I love his paper. But for him, I love his framework. But for him, he's not talking, he cannot understand realistically African agency. So, and your work too is very good because you are saying that exit, that way you mentioned, I love it. Oh, government is not working. There is no trust in government. Exit. But what about agency? So the South Africans, they don't have that exit mentality. You know, the South Africans, they are more attached. That's maybe in your framework, can we bring out sense of patriotism? We go that way. So you can did a song the other time. Sure, you can did a song many years back. You say, I love my country, I know the life, now inside that, I will live and die. If you push me, I push up. That is agency mentality, and that agency, you, Dr. University, you have it. Ambassador Carlos also have it. What I'm doing now is agency. We could have organized a conference to complain, to lament. No. Let's leave the story of comment and lamentation. So the agency in your writings too, but the Western scholar will not talk about the agency of African man. They don't want us to take any action. So their framework is, they will say African man is leading because he's poor. And I love the analysis. You said a poor man from the village cannot migrate. That's a Western Eurocentric narration that Africans are living because they are poor. Poverty is not sufficient and reason why they're living. And you said that if a poor African is moving, they can rural urban migration. They can move from the village to come to Lagos. They can come from their villages to come to Lagos. I love that analysis. But again, in your analysis, let's also say that because African person has that agency to say, I love my country, I live now inside that. And the purpose of this conference, that this summit, is that now people have that, okay, this is my country, this is my space. Can I do here? Okay, if Nigeria system cannot allow me, can I go to Togo and become Prof? And that's what Ambassador Tao did. But I know that if Ambassador say Nigeria will choke him. But in South Africa, they recognize his academic potentials. So that's actually what I want. In me, my greatest takeaway is that if Nigeria will choke you, go to South Africa or go to Botswana, go to Mozambique, go and flourish. And it does let's open the borders. So the agency, so if agency is not there, Africa can also, there's no perfect system anywhere in the world. But at the point in time, people can come and say, well, I have no place to go. Here is where I am. If Nigeria will allow you, go to other. And I think that's one thing I want to be projecting now, that let's have this expansionist mindset. If Nigeria will choke you, go to Togo. If Togo will choke you, go to Ghana. Because if a Nigerian who goes to Ghana will see opportunity which a Ghanaian cannot see. And this is what Ambassador said, that is in Zimbabwe. In Zimbabwe, we only see Zimbabwe as a limited opportunity. But in Nigeria, market Zimbabwe, look at the banana $1. $1 in Nigeria. That's a breakfast for me. The breakfast, 1,300 naira. $2 banana. That's a breakfast. Chicken Republic here. If I want to eat chicken Republic there, Professor, let me tell you, Chicken Republic, complete food with drink is 4,300 naira. Take away. And 4,300, that's $3. Now $3 being the food is Zimbabwe. Excuse me, sir. You can meet, sir. Ambassador. You can meet.
Sir, do you know how much is for me and you to eat a breakfast
Yes,
in Zimbabwe?
how
Minimum
much?
$15. A good
You know?
breakfast for one person.
In Nigeria, as a big man, if you get to Chicken Republic, $5 and a big man, $5.
You need $15 for me to eat. What am I saying? In my 5-star hotel, a breakfast that you book for is $25.
You know. So
when you get to that place, Nigerians are still there. So Togo and other nationalities are there working. And then you ask yourself, but you can do the same job in Nigeria, or in Congo, or in Malawi, or Burundi. But would the nations allow you to work and make that money there?
Enter the country, and that's good. That is a good point we are looking at. Now, for me, Dr. Ngozi, I know one of the pastors who I'm actually doing a paper on that. My paper is that if you can increase level of intra-African migration, we are going to now repurpose. I don't know if you can argue on that or suggestion. I want
to ask Doctor some questions, 1 or 2 questions as well. Please don't let me forget.
Let me submit this one. My question is that these are hypotheses that if you increase level of intra-African migration, can we reduce, let's say, local African borders? Can we sufficiently reduce migration aspiration to Europe? So in that case, people now have alternative locations. So migration aspiration is natural in human beings. So if they're not allowed to go to Europe, let them go to Zimbabwe. If you open an African border, can it lead to the reduction in actual migration outside the country? That's my question, Dr. Ngozi. Then other people can ask your questions. Dr. Tao, we can go ahead with your question and contribution, sir.
Okay. Before I even ask the question, what you just said right now, opening intra-continent borders will be a major, and it's going to open a major breakthrough for each and every Africans. For you to try your potential without any barrier. That's number one solution in terms of migration policy. Now, I want to ask Dr. Ngozi, my learned colleagues, for that, and thank you for that beautiful presentation. I think it's high time for me also to come and visit you and see what I can do, because it looks like I can bring how many population in Nigeria now? 22 million? How many?
About 240.
Maybe I can bring 230 of Nigerians to your country. I think I will make money. So sir,
see Nigeria, Ambassador, you see Nigeria.
Oh, you are in Nigeria?
Yes, he only consulting for them. He's actually living in Enugu State. He's consulting for them in Canada and in Portugal.
So
He's
how do you work?
globalized Nigeria.
I want to know, how do you work?
Remote working. Okay,
wait,
explain by yourself. Explain by yourself.
That's what I want to ask. Maybe we'll do it off camera, but for argument's sake, how do you work with foreigners or potential migrants? I want to know, sir.
Okay. Potential migrants from Africa going to...
Yes.
How do I get them?
Or even Nigeria or South Africa. Let's talk about the country that we are concerned with, particular country of particular concern.
Yes. I conduct a lot of research. By the way, I lived in Russia and Germany, in the 90s, and I was deported from Germany in year 2000, and I couldn't graduate from the university. But when I returned to Nigeria, I went back to school and I graduated first degree. I took WAEC, started first degree, did a master's and did a PhD in Nigeria. Again, even after my friends were telling me, you are stupid, what are you still doing in Africa? If they deport you in Germany, why you not go USA or Canada? Some of my friends, they left to the US. One of them that we are deported with is a medical doctor in the US. He's living very well. And many of them remigrated to some other countries. But, Africa is my contest. I like Africa. But Nigeria is not treating us good. Even after attracting projects here, EU projects, the professors, the university, they increase the visibility of the university where I'm attached, affiliated to. They still don't notice me that I'm supposed to have a work here. I'm in the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. By the way, I'm in a professor's office, but I don't have a job here. But it's still that Nigerian no gree. That's what is keeping me here. I've traveled to Europe. If I wanted, I'll stay there and start hustling like other people are doing. But I've had my experience when I was younger. And then, I value my country so much, and I value to stay in Africa. I prefer to stay in Africa than to stay in some other countries outside Africa. So I meet migrants. It's easy for me to meet migrants everywhere. My last research, I was conducting research on the impact of advanced digital technology on rights and regional mobility in the West Africa region, West Africa border management. So I went to these countries and I meet migrants because it's easy when you have traveled before. It's easy for you to meet migrants. When you see them, you know how to deal with them, talk with them, use some of the slangs, Sometimes I see Ghanaians. Ghanaians, when they leave Ghana, they leave Cote d'Ivoire. Then when they get to Liberia, Sierra Leone, they start seeing Nigerians as their brothers. But in Ghana, they don't see Nigerians. They are too nationalistic. But immediately they cross that Tolepula border, enter Liberia, they start seeing Nigerians as their brothers, you see. And migrants, they are very, very, immediately they notice that that you are coming to research on the activities, what's happened along the border, how they are living, how they are pressurized. Some of them are pressurized to pay money for new resident permits or to have several documents to allow them to stay in the country. Immediately they see we are researching, they want to help you, especially their leaders. They want to talk to you, tell you how they are feeling, what structural factors are making them not to progress in the country of their destination. So they are easygoing. You don't find it difficult to see migrants. They are all over. Even in Nigeria here, you go to Abuja, you see many Ghanaians. I know 10 managers, 10 people managing Ghanaians managing hotels in Ghana, in Nigeria, in Abuja. In Abuja, I know 10 Ghanaians. In Port Harcourt, I know 4 Gambians managing hotels in Port Harcourt. So when they say you don't have migrants in Nigeria from the region, they don't know what they're saying. The only problem Nigeria has is that they don't even know the population of migrants in Nigeria. Immediately you cross that border, Nigerian border, and you can speak Pidgin or you can speak Hausa, you are a Nigerian, because nobody's going to bother you. That's the problem we have in Nigeria. We don't check whether immigrants are living here or not. You know, we are not very the immigration processes is not very harsh to people who are not Nigerians, to foreigners, like other countries. I don't know if that is a positive virtue or negative. So increasing intra-African migration, if it can help reduce migration aspiration outside Africa. I also conducted research on migrants who are living in like ECOWAS migrants who are living in neighboring countries, including those who have been deported from Europe, from North Africa. I met some of them in Sierra Leone, in Liberia. I met them in Cote d'Ivoire, you know, and also in Nigeria. Some migrants, some Gambians, some Guineans who have been, Senegalese who have been repatriated from Europe and North Africa, who are living in Nigeria, and some Nigerians who have been repatriated from North Africa and Europe who are living in Ghana. I met some of them and I interviewed them, you know, and you see that when they return, because of the stigma that is surrounding them going back to their home communities, you know, they prefer to remigrate. You know, post-return mobility again will take place. They leave their country of origin. Sometimes they found better opportunities in neighboring countries. I'm still analyzing it, but this is the preliminary of the results of what I'm seeing. They prefer to go to neighboring countries because of maybe economic opportunities or because of stigma of you have traveled before, you've not made it, and you came back empty-handed. So intra-African migration I think can help reduce migration aspirations to Europe and North Africa. But people just want to leave, not that they are poor. They want to leave, they want to adventure, they want to experience things, what is happening there, these things we see on television, what is really happening. Because Europeans, they also migrate. Americans also migrate because of the passport they have. So why can't people from the global south also migrate to also experience what is happening there? Thank you.
Mic is unmuted, sir. Ambassador, your mic is unmuted.
Brilliant. We take note of every point you have made, sir. Thank you, Dr. Ngozi. Ngozi, thank you so much, sir. We will get in touch. Yeah, we will get in touch.
Yes, I will share his contact with you, Professor. Professor. I don't say they deport you from Germany, sir. I don't say they deport you from Germany.
No, they deport me from. I lived in Russia and then I lived in Germany. I lived in so many countries. Yes, I lived in so many countries.
I respect you. So after your deportation, you now pick your life again. Started from direct life, went back to school.
Yes.
Masters and PhD.
Initially, I went to school. I traveled to Europe to go to school, but I was deported because I couldn't. I went to do engineering. I couldn't get any engineering certificates. I was deported with my Rasta. So I went back and went back to school. Yeah.
No, you're coming again now. This migration training is stopping. I'm inviting you again to come and tell us this one academic. So two presentations we are holding you now. You tell your story, how you return and actually reform your life. I love it. Because you mentioned that after you're returning to Nigeria, you came back again and went back to go your first degree, master's and PhD. And you're actually supposed to be an engineer, but now you're a migration scholar. That's very inspiring. So that means we want to have your story now. Tell us that one. And Professor Tu is going to tell us about his business venture in 12 African countries. So two of you are owing me special presentation. And this program too is coming up every Saturday. We are going to fix the time now. Every Saturday we are coming here to have this robust discussion and move the continent forward. All right. Let me see who is the next now. Dr. They call it Dr. Frederick now. Chief Frederick is actually organizing a conference, investment conference in Portugal in November. So, Dr. Ngozi, maybe you want to attack. You are not a businessman. You are not a businessman. But I think African scholars, UNN is supposed to give you a job. UNN is supposed to give you a job. So I don't know why. But do you expect Unilag? Dr. Ngozi, do you expect Unilag?
No, anywhere I can teach. I teach even adjunct here, but I help even several schools to develop curriculum on migration studies. But after developing it, they will not, because maybe you are not from their region. Sectionalism is so much in Nigeria. I went to National Open University here in Abuja, even University of Nigeria here. I helped them to develop curriculum, even the ones in deep east, in Imo State, my own state. But when you help them develop curriculum, they see it. They don't call you, they start using your curriculum to teach and don't even recognize you. But it's okay. Yes.
I did the curriculum for Liverpool University. I got the contracts on their international relations student. I did a curriculum for them for one session, but my own was a contract. So I don't even have the time to get full-time job with them. They gave me that contract. I did that for them. But never mind. But once I'm open to opportunities, or I'm sort of can you lecture in South Africa? Because this professor town is collected. Can you help us get him a job in South Africa? Professor, is it possible?
It's what we're going to discuss on a personal note, not on the public note.
Yeah.
Personal note. All right, not in public. All right, so maybe you have your CV. I know you like talents, and do you what's it called? You deserve to recognize, even giving the school, bringing the investment opportunity or bigger visibility to the university is important one. So let's.
I think I talked about one of the last people I talked about meritocracy. That's why I was smiling. Recently, we heard that they are giving employment here at the University of Nigeria and Nsukka, and they just did it within themselves. They didn't even put 5% or 10% for meritocracy for those who merit it, so that people like us will come in. They just gave their family members, and I keep laughing and laughing. I say, Africa, we are not ready for development. Because those people they put the last employment they did, some of people they employ, they cannot even open a laptop to work on Word documents and write their names. I mean, where I am, some people that are working in university cannot open Word document to write their name. So that's how bad it has gone here in Nigeria. But this is our country, this is our continent. We cannot run away. We must find a way to, to remedy it. We can't run away. Yeah.
You know one thing, what I see is that maybe God is preparing something better for you.
That's for Africa, so for Africa, not only for me. For Africa.
For Africa, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yes,
all right. Chief Akpeji, you can go ahead now. I was looking for your citation. I didn't have it. So Chief Akpeji is an investment consultant and also conference organizer. So, Chief Akpeji, are you there?
I'm very much here. Thank you very much to our two previous speakers. I think both of you, Dr. Ogunlade and Dr. Uzoma, both of you have set a very powerful tone for this session of our seminar today. And I'm going to be making my presentation, but from time to time, I'll be building on some of the points that both speakers have already made. Now, let me take 1 or 2 minutes to introduce myself. My name is Frederick Akpeji. I'm the chairman CEO of Alford Conferences Limited. We organize events of our own here in Nigeria. We've been doing that for the past, it's been 14 years now since we started this company. But we are also beginning to desire to expand to Europe. So when we created the European African Investors Forum, it is with the underlying motive that at some point we will set up a subsidiary of Alford Conferences Limited in Portugal and use that as our entry point into Europe. Because Portugal is a very well-grounded country in the EU. It's a member of the EU, it's a member of the Eurozone, where the Euro is the currency, and then it's a member of the Schengen area, and all of that. So in a nutshell, that is where I am. I'm 60 years old. I think God willing, by December this year, I'm going to be 61 years old. I'm from Oyo State. I read English language for my first degree and my second degree. I have worked extensively both in Lagos and in Abuja, but I'm currently based in Abuja. And although my family is in Delta State, my family is in Agbo, in Delta State, but I shuttle both places, both Abuja and Agbo. And the conference that we are organizing coming up in November in 2020 of this year in Lisbon, Portugal, that was what brought Soji and I together. And we have become partners, we have become friends. And when he told me that he was inviting me to speak at this conference, I jumped. I said, please sign me up. It will be my pleasure to be able to rub minds with fellow Africans. Because just as I commented in my appreciation of the presentation by Dr. Ogunlade, we Africans must see Africa as one space, you know. And just as Soji himself also said not too long ago, that if Nigeria is not treating you well, go to Accra and go and settle down there. If Ghana is not treating you well, try Tanzania. We are the same continent, you know, and all of that. So in terms of introduction, that is who I am. Now, I thank you, Soji Ajao. I don't know whether to say Chief Soji Ajao. For me, as a Nigerian, anybody who is 40 years old and above is a chief, because you must have started doing some things in your local community. Your local community must have started calling upon you to come and do one thing or the other, starting from the age of 40. And then by the time you are getting to 50, you are getting to 60, they probably begin to treat you as an elder, you know, as a community elder and all of that. So I don't know whether to also call Soji Chief, at this Chief Olusoji Ajao. That's on the humorous note. But honestly, to the main topic why we are here today, the Africa My Africa Summit. And the theme of this session this Saturday is connecting Africa, creating opportunities, and building the future for Africa. And the summit itself is a platform for deal making, matchmaking, and business networking. Soji, I must first of all congratulate you for embarking on this journey. In future, I think we should all gather our resources together to support this venture in terms of sponsorship of it, support of it in various manifestations, in various ways. Like as we are rising up from this, our session today, I want to be able to sponsor some publicity of this event in the social media and also in the traditional newspapers in Nigeria, Guardian, This Day, Punch, and all of that. I'm going to sponsor a report. I'm going to sponsor the coverage in some of these newspapers, in addition to what we do regularly on social media. I think we all should find a way to come together to support an initiative like this. That's every Saturday. Can you imagine that on a typical Saturday, we have participants from Kenya, Tanzania, Egypt, Algeria, Nigeria, Cape Verde, South Africa, Mozambique, Madagascar. Could you imagine regularly? DR Congo, Cameroon, Chad, Gabon. Could you imagine a typical Saturday? We are participants from these different countries. All of us participating in a program like this. Can you imagine how powerful it is? Even today, we are just 10 of us in the house. I'm already feeling, wow, this summit has blessed me by knowing Dr. Taiwo Ogunlade, by knowing Dr. Ngozi Uzoma. By the time we finish this summit, I'm going to be talking to them. I'm going to be opening up to them. That this is what I do. What can we do together? Now, can you imagine what's going on and keeps progressing? Can you imagine if a time comes when we have participants from a lot more of our countries across the continent? This forum will be so powerful. Many, many more persons will be looking forward to being a part of it. So, in a nutshell, Soji, what you have started is a powerful thing. It will grow beyond you. Please take note that I've said it today. This Africa, My Africa Summit that you have started, it is you who gave birth to it, but it will grow beyond you. That's how powerful things usually manifest. One person will start it, others will start joining. That at the time, they will not even know who started it. But you can note it down today. This weekly powerful summit that you have initiated, it is your sweat, it is your idea, it's your resources. It's going to grow beyond you. Because a lot of people are going to take ownership of it as if they are the ones that even came up with it in the first place. You know, so I want to start by commending you. I've already commended Dr. Ogunlade and Dr. Ngozi Uzoma for your presentations. Now, I also want to encourage and inspire those who are also in attendance. You may not necessarily be speakers, but please take the story of this summit today. Take it out there. Rock the story. Media platform as much as possible. You know, I am going to be speaking on the area of connecting Africa and then connecting Africa with Europe. Those are two very powerful agendas. Connecting Africans together among themselves and then connecting Africa as a whole with Europe. The first point, Dr. Ogunlade has already helped me to make it very extensively. I will not be dwelling much on that one. But it's very, very important, like I mentioned in one of my comments, that Africans must see Africa as their entire space, that this whole space belongs to me. Me, in terms of travel, I've been to, of course, I'm a Nigerian national. I've been to Benin Republic, Togo, Ghana, South Africa, and Cameroon. Those are the countries that I've visited. And I remember anytime I visit any of these countries, I don't feel like a stranger. I don't feel like a non-national. I feel like this is part of my space. Because the sights of Africa are the same sights. The sounds of Africa are the same sound. The behavior of Africans generally are the same. Apart from maybe to some extent South Africa that is a lot more European. But African countries generally, I've not been to North Africa. But these West African countries that I've visited, they tend to be the same. In fact, if somebody did not tell you are in Cameroon, you would not tell you are in Lagos, you think you are still in. If somebody does not tell you that you are in Accra, you think you are still in Lagos, not in Accra. You know, so it is very, very important for us to keep pushing this narrative that Africa is one space for Africans. They must take opportunity of it and rock it as much as they can. What the AU is doing by this Africa Free Trade Association is a very timely thing. But in our own individual ways, let's keep driving it. As we are speaking, there are some Nigerians. Again, I want to mention Dr. Ogunlade, who has not just gone to South Africa and started a small business in South Africa alone. He has expanded it to 11 other countries, if I'm not mistaken. That is the example. I met a guy, you will not believe it. He's based in Malaysia. He's a Nigerian guy. He's based in Malaysia. And he's into logistics, facilitating trade among continents. That's what he does. He looks for a niche and he plugs himself into that niche. That's how he makes money. He's a Yoruba guy. He's based in Malaysia today. But his business cuts across Nigeria, South Africa, Malaysia, and India. Those are the kind of things that Africans will rise up to. You know, the typical European is not looking at his home country of Lithuania. He's looking at the entire EU. He's looking at beyond even the EU, at the entire continent of Europe as a space, irrespective of what the language differences are, irrespective of what the cultural differences are. That is how I believe Africans should talk, Africans should think, Africans should behave. That this continent is our number one priority, first of all. This is our first home, the entire continent. And this continent is very powerful. As I'm speaking with you, I'm talking to a Ghanaian company. They want to invest in our company. Sorry, a Kenyan company. They want to invest in Alford Conferences Limited, my company. And do you know, I didn't prospect them directly. It is one of the same partners that we have engaged to work with us for this European African Investors Forum. They brought the concept to me. In fact, it was she who introduced me to the Kenyans. And we have had so much conversations. Now we are at the point of signing a deal. They want to put money inside Alford Conferences Limited. People that I didn't know from Adam 3 months ago. You know, so those opportunities, they exist in their hundreds and thousands across our continent. If we see the continent as one, each of us, especially us entrepreneurs, we will make more money faster than we are making currently. If we just sit down inside Zimbabwe and think everything starts and ends in Zimbabwe, or if we just sit down inside Mauritania and think everything starts and ends in Mauritania, or if we just sit down in Nigeria and think everything starts and ends in Nigeria, we won't go far. But if we first of all take over Africa or colonize Africa, let me use a funny word, as our territory, then opportunities will naturally begin to open up to us. That is connecting Africa to Africa. Now, I want to talk about connecting Africa to Europe. when Soji spoke to me about this summit, that's what I told him I'm going to speak about. And he gave me he told me, please go ahead, share your thoughts with us, and just basically make it as interactive as possible, and share your ideas, share your insights, share your convictions about where you are going, so that others can perhaps take a cue from it and see what they can do to plug in, and so on and so forth. Let me talk about plugging Africa to Europe. Today, it's very exciting to look at China. It's very exciting to want to go to China today. That's what is going on. I'm talking about hard reality. A lot of entrepreneurs in Africa today, they want to go to China because they will get a better deal in China. The equipment they want to buy to come and help grow their small business here in Africa, they can get it cheaper in China. China will put less restrictions on them than Europe. So today, there is a lot of excitement, hunger, push of Africans generally to go to Kenya, to go and engage with Kenya. But honestly, if you look very closely, Europe offers us far more goodies than China. The first point that I will make on this is to look at the character of China and the character of Europe. You know, China is the son of a poor man that has just, I'm making a hypothetical example. China is like the son of a poor man that has only just achieved a little success in the last one generation. Until 1978, 79, China was poorer than Ghana, poorer than Nigeria. But compared to Europe, Europe is the son of a wealthy father, a wealthy grandfather, a wealthy great-grandfather. In a nutshell, Europe has been a wealthy space for the past several centuries. China has only just become financially comfortable in the last one generation. Between those two people, China naturally will behave in a predatory manner. Europe will behave in a more generous manner. China will behave in a predatory manner because China said never seen goodies before. It's only until recently that China has started having it well. So chances are that it is generally more predatory. They will give us loans. Some of those loans we can't pay back because of the conditions, and they are seizing our facilities in Africa. They are taking over an airport. They are taking over train stations because we are defaulting on those loans. Europeans are far more comfortable to start pushing you to those extremes. That's one comparison between China and Europe. Another comparison between China and Europe, we are more integrated with Europe than we are with China. China has population about 1.4 billion. Let's say Europe has population, the entire Europe, including Russia, including Germany. These are the two big countries in terms of population. Europe has, give or take, about 600 to 700 million people. So China has far more people, maybe times two the number of people that the whole of Europe has. But between China and Europe, we are more integrated with Europe. Why do I say so? In terms of language, in terms of culture. When I'm saying culture, I'm not saying the traditional things about Africans and the traditional things about Europe. It's basically what Europeans and Africans have done together in the past close to 200 years. The English language that we speak today came from Europe. The French that we speak, the French language that we speak in Cote d'Ivoire, in Senegal, in Madagascar, in DR Congo, in Cameroon, came from France. The Portuguese that we speak in Angola, in Mozambique, and these other smaller Portuguese-speaking countries, it came from Portugal. Those are already existing connections. If you are going to China today and you are a Ghanaian, before you can start thriving, you must have to start learning Chinese. But if you are going from Ghana today to the UK, you don't need to learn any language. It's the same language you have been speaking since we were born. These are the languages of business on our continent: English, French, Portuguese, and Arabic, if you want to count the North African countries as well. You know? So these are existing connections. when it comes to businesses in general, how business is structured, the way Europeans have structured their businesses over the centuries, that is what they brought to us in Africa. That is what we have embraced in the last close to 200 years. And that is what we are still doing today. European corporate law is the same corporate law that we are using in Africa. The British corporate law is the Nigerian corporate law. If there are differences, they are very slight and very insignificant. The British corporate law is the corporate law that Ghana is using, that Senegal is using. Sorry, that Tanzania, Uganda, South Africa, Kenya are using. The French corporate law is what they use in Cote d'Ivoire and Senegal. This corporate law is what they use in Angola, in Mozambique, and the others. So that's another connection. That's another area of being grounded together. What about the geography? If you are talking about geography, the entire North Africa is part of at least the principal countries of North Africa connect with the rest of Southern European countries to make up what we call the Mediterranean. The Mediterranean Sea washes Italy, Greece, Spain, Portugal to some extent, just the same way it washes Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Egypt, Libya. That's another connectedness. Still another connectedness on the business front is historically, if you look at the way business has evolved in Africa today, it has evolved and patterned after Europeans. If you look at the Nigerian Stock Exchange today, until recently, that we have started having big-time indigenous companies quoted on the exchange, until maybe like 20 years ago, the biggest companies quoted on the exchange had British origins.
We can't hear you again. Chief, we can't hear you again. We can't hear you. Okay, well, on the front, we were talking about Nigeria moving on to Europeans for business partnership. So I think it's a good point. But for me, I'm very skeptical about that. I don't want him to finish the presentation because for me, I see Africa as the best hope or last hope of Africa. As I see China as the last hope of Africa. The Europeans are not teaching us that, treating us as equals. They are treating us as subservient folks. That's my own reservation about doing business with European countries. All right, we can go ahead.
Yeah, sorry about that. Something no distracted my connection. Yes, let me continue.
Can you change your Elisa? Can you face your camera? Can you face the light where the light is coming from? We can have a better view.
Okay, yes. All right. Let me talk about
if you face the window, the window, we always have a better view. We are going to have a better view of the present. Okay. No, can you face the light? No, if you face the light, we are going to have a better view where the light is coming from.
Okay, all right. If I face the light.
Yes, that's why it's blurry. Okay. If you face where the light is coming from, I don't know.
Something like this.
Otherwise, you just okay. Don't worry. Let's just okay. Let's go.
Okay, I think it's a little bit better now. Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes, thank you very much. So as I was saying, if you look at all of these companies, they all have European backgrounds. And all we need to do is to take the existing ties we already have with Europe and comfortably step forward to go and make money in Europe. When Europeans came to colonize Africa, they didn't take any permission from us. We don't need to take permission from Europe to go and make money in Europe. When I say to go and make money in Europe, to go and take capital from Europe and come and put it in the hand of African entrepreneurs, we don't need any permission. And those scenarios are right on ground waiting for us. The capital is in Europe. The opportunities are in Africa. Let me illustrate with two banks. One is a French bank. France is Western Europe. One is a Nigerian bank. Nigeria is West Africa. The French bank is BNP Paribas. The Nigerian bank is Access Bank. Do you know, in terms of what is the portfolio of BNP Paribas today, as at the end of the financial year 2025, that's what I mean about today, 168 billion euros. What is the portfolio of Access Bank? 7.2 billion euros. Portfolio simply means loan portfolio. It simply means how much did BNP Paribas give out in loans to whether companies, individuals, organizations as at 2025? 168 billion euros. BNP Paribas is the biggest bank in France in terms of assets. It's also the biggest bank in Western Europe in terms of assets. Access Bank is the biggest bank in Nigeria in terms of assets. It is also the biggest bank in terms of assets in the whole of West Africa. That's why I've chosen the two banks to make this example. Now, for every 7.2 billion euros that Access Bank has to give as loans to companies to grow their businesses, BNP Paribas has 168 billion. They don't even come anywhere near. And when we look at the figures of other banks like HSBC of the UK, Deutsche Bank of Germany, Banco Santander of Spain, we see similar things. These are very huge banks that have a very massive portfolio compared to African banks that are puny, that are small. But that's not even the end of the story. The more powerful part of the story is how much does this money cost? Again, we looked at France and we looked at Nigeria. In terms of what is the basic interest rate that BNP will be charging on this 168 billion euros? Maximum 5%. In other words, if BNP Paribas loans me 1 million euros and gives me a 1-year moratorium and then gives me an additional 3 years tenure, in other words, I'm going to have the 1 million euros from BNP Paribas with myself to use it as I deem fit, based on what we have submitted to them as our loan proposal and the approval of it. I can use that money over the next 4 years, and by the time I'm paying back, 4 years from now will be 2030. By the time I'm paying back, I'll be paying back 1 million euros plus 5%. 5% of 1 million euros is 1,050,000 euros. Now, let's look at the example of Nigeria. The basic standard interest rate, 35%. I know there is a prime lending rate in Nigeria, but the prime lending rate is usually for those top-notch companies, those blue-chip companies like your MTN, your Dangote Group, and all of that. My company is not a Dangote Group. I will never be able to enjoy prime lending rate from any Nigerian bank. Access Bank, GT Bank, First Bank, they can't extend that kind of rate to me. It's those blue-chip companies, Nigerian breweries, Guinness, that they extend the prime lending rate. For obvious reasons, these companies, they are basically well-run, well-tested companies that have been in existence for decades, some for centuries. So they can go to sleep, providing whatever facility they want to provide for them. But what about the millions upon millions of small, micro, and medium enterprises, which is where I belong? The best that I can possibly get for that same 1 million euros equivalent from Access Bank. Access Bank will say, bring 35%. If Access Bank gives me the same moratorium 1 year and the same 10 or 3 years, at the end of 4 years, by this time in 2030, Access Bank will say, give me 1,350,000 euros. That's the implication. The capital is in Europe, and the capital in Europe is cheap, far cheaper than the capital available in Nigeria. We need to go and take it. BNP Paribas is like any other bank. The job of a bank is intermediation. You take money from the surplus, you give it to the deficit. The surplus side of the equation is basically the depositors, you and I. Your 5,000 naira in Access Bank, your 50,000 naira in Access Bank, your 500,000 naira in Access Bank, your 5 billion naira in Access Bank. That is basically the surplus end. We pool all this money together. Access Bank probably has over 40 million customers. All their deposits combined, that's what forms the surplus side of the equation of banking or banking intermediation. The deficit side are the people that want to borrow it. The people that can pay back 350 million, 350,000 naira on top of the 1 million euros that Access Bank has given them. You understand what I mean? So these two things are very powerful propositions for Africans to consider plugging into Europe far more. And I'm not talking about the Chinese loans that are coming to government. Some of it is misused. Dr. Ngozi talked a lot about corruption in the system, not just in Nigeria, but almost Pan-African. We're talking about these monies coming into the hands of entrepreneurs. If BNP Paribas, for instance, creates an African facility, an African fund, an African MSME fund of, say, 50 million euros and sends it to Access Bank to manage on his behalf, at 5%, mind you, at 5%. And Access Bank says, Alfred, how much do you need? I say, please, so just give me 1 million euros. You don't do for me. Just 1 million euros is okay for me. Do you know how much that 1 million naira will translate into to grow my company? There is such a tremendous value proposition for Africans on their own to approach Europe and say, hey, take a look at what we have on the ground here. We are small, we are puny, but whatever you sow on the African soil will give you returns that you will never be able to dream of in Europe. That's what I mean when I say we must find a way to connect to Europe. And that brings me to the program we are trying to push, the European African Investors Forum. It's basically a platform to encourage European investors. Some of these European investors may also be diaspora investors, Africans in the diaspora who are also investors. Some of these investors may actually not be Europeans. They may also even be Africans that are in Africa. But basically, we have called it European investors. A lot more persons might want to show interest in it. Somebody may want to come from Dubai, from Saudi Arabia, from Qatar, and say, hey, we are interested in this program. Are we going to tell them not to come? Of course, no. We're going to open the door for them as well. But you know, everything has a name, everything has a designation, everything has a scope. Our scope is Europe and Africa. And our scope basically is investors from Europe and then MSMEs from Africa. MSMEs, they exist in their millions across our continent. In Nigeria alone, they often estimate that micro, small, and medium enterprises are about 38 million to 40 million. This is a large pool of entrepreneurs. It's not every of them that can have access to European funding. But if some of them make a deliberate attempt, they will get funding from European investors. Let me mention what is going on in the tech space in Africa today. And let me rely on the report by Tech Partners. By the time I'm done with my presentation, I'm going to develop it further and I'm going to send a copy to Soji and he can in turn forward it to everybody else. And in that report, in that my presentation, I will put several documents. I will put several website links, just so that when you go through my presentation, you'll be able to see some of these things that I'm mentioning. I won't be able to read all of those reports from page 1 to page 16, for instance. I won't be able to. But I will put them as part of the presentation that I will forward to Soji by, let's say by Monday. I think my presentation will reach you, sir, so that you can then put it on the general platform for all of us that have been in this summit today. And then they can take their time to digest it in more details. But back to what I'm saying. The business capital sitting down in Europe, the same Europe that is next door to us. I talked about the North African countries being at the backyard of the Southern European countries. Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, and Egypt, they are at the backyard of Spain, Italy, Greece, and those former countries of Yugoslavia. They are all the Mediterranean Sea. They are the countries that surround the Mediterranean Sea. They are neighbors, so to say. Meanwhile, Even further down the continent in sub-Saharan Africa, Europe is still a stone's throw for us than China. If you're traveling to China, I don't know how many hours journey. Maybe you're looking at 14 hours, 15 hours, 16 hours. But even if you are traveling from the farthest corner of Africa, which is South Africa, or Namibia, or Madagascar, the distance is not as far as traveling to China. And like I've explained earlier on in my presentation, the cultural connections are already there. The historical connections are already there. If you want to engage Europe in a big way today, it is in our hands. It's doable. We don't need to sweat to be able to do this. That is the reason why we created the European African Investors Forum. The reason why I said I'm going to be speaking to Dr. Ogunlade is because he says his business cuts across 12 countries in Africa. In camera, between me and him, it doesn't have to be public. I'm going to be bringing some things to his attention and be saying, why don't you want to find a way of taking advantage of this? Even if you are not coming to Lisbon, Portugal with us, why don't you find a way to plug in online with some of these people that we ourselves have also started talking to? Just these past 3 days, a Portuguese entrepreneur based in Luanda, Angola, reached out to us because they saw our posts on LinkedIn. And they said they want to represent Angola, just the same way that we said we have apportioned territories for different entrepreneurs to represent us in organizing this event. For instance, we have given the Pan-African space to Soji. We have asked Soji, please reach out to people in your Pan-African communities as far as this event is concerned. And then whoever is coming, please let them register in your name. And then, of course, there's a little token to appreciate that effort here and there and all of that. But the main thing basically is, why don't you use your existing network across the continent to showcase this event and see who can take advantage of it? In the same way, we are going to be reaching out to others and saying, hey, this is an opportunity for Africa. We are looking for, the conference is not just a conference, it's an advocacy. We are saying we are targeting 250 billion euros over a 10 years period, starting from 2026 and ending in 2035. That over the next 10 years, we are going to keep talking to Germans, French people, Britons, Spaniards, Portuguese, the Dutch, Belgians, Russians, Polish, Poles, whoever, across the 48 countries of Europe. We're going to be identifying their investors, and we're going to keep telling them, please have an African program, please have an African agenda, including some of the biggest banks in these European countries. That is basically the advocacy. We are going to be this conference basically is to advocate for Africa, African MSMEs, not the government of Lagos State, Nigeria, not the government of Greater Accra region in Ghana, not the government of Ghana itself, not the government of Nigeria, but MSMEs across our continent. They are the ones we are advocating for. That look, on our own, we can step forward and do whatever it takes to tap into European capital and bring it down. And you know the way the life is usually. If the first person does it and it succeeds, 3 more persons will join. After those 3 more persons join, another 10 persons will say, hey, wait a minute, I think I can do a similar thing. That is basically what this advocacy is all about. MSMEs across Africa that are credible companies, that are well-established businesses themselves, that all they require is the kind of business capital they have never dreamt of. As we speak today, there is a company, for instance, in Norway, that can put 1 million euros in the hand of a guy that has built one hotel, a 20-room hotel, and that hotel is based right there in Lagos. There's this company that can put this capital in his hand, and the moment this capital touches his hand, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the road, he has multiplied, he has grown that one hotel into a hotel chain of 40 properties in Lagos, in several other cities in Nigeria. Maybe has even expanded into Ghana. Maybe has expanded across into Cameroon. Those are the possibilities that are lying on our heads. I remember the story of, still talking about the hospitality industry. I remember the story of this Malian guy. He's a great guy. He's a very successful guy now. He actually went the same route. I can't recall his name. He's a Malian guy, French speaking, English speaking. He actually went the same route from building his first hotel in Bamako, the capital of Mali. Before he knew it, he planted one in Dakar in Senegal. Before he knew it, today, he has a chain of 14 hotels, big hotels, not the tiny hotels that I described in my earlier hypothetical example. Big time hotels. He has developed that chain with European money. He talks about it on YouTube all the time. And he says, he tells Europeans that yes, in Africa there is war. In Africa there is famine. In Africa there is hunger. In Africa there are insurgencies taking place. But that in Africa there is corruption. But that in the same Africa, somebody will lodge in a hotel every day. Somebody will drink a bottle of Coca-Cola every day. In the same Africa, somebody will buy a pair of shoes. Somebody will buy a smartphone. He says he kept telling Europeans that story until finally he ran into one of them that bought into his idea. And he was one that funded his first hotel in Bamako. And today he has a chain of hotels, close to 14 properties, from one property to 14 properties. He's a billionaire today. Those are the kind of things that are possibilities waiting for African micro, medium, and small enterprises. If we do take that bold step and step into Europe, not because we want to go and watch plays in Europe, we want to jacka and go to Europe and go and take one mania job. No. But because we want to go and make a very strong statement about what we already do. And say, please bring funding to us. This is how much bigger we can get. And these are the returns you will get. As I'm speaking with you today, I've already hinted in one of my reactions to an earlier presenter that as we speak today, there is a Kenyan company that is interested in putting money in Harvard Conferences Limited, not even Europe. You know, as I was telling you, I said European investors and African MSMEs, that these so-called investors could also be Africans that are in Europe. The guy that established World Remit, that's one of the biggest, these money transfer companies in Europe today. World Remit. It's not Western Union, it's not MoneyGram. The guy is a Somalian guy. He's based in the UK. World Remit today is one of the biggest in the world. And they want to even go beyond Africa and Europe. And it was created and established by an African. I'm going to be rounding up. Sergio, I'm going to be rounding up in a short while so that I can also take some questions here and there. In a nutshell, that is what the forum is all about. You can read more about it on our event website. It's called lisbonium.com.ng. Lisbonium, coined from the word Lisbon, from the city Lisbon, and then lisbonium.com.ng. That's the official website of the event, European African Investors Forum. But the event itself is to illustrate the point that I made at the beginning of my presentation about Africa deliberately engaging Europe. It doesn't stop us from going to China, but going to China should not make us close our eyes to the fruit that is just in our backyard. Europeans and Africans, we have had dealings with ourselves. If you want to look at the negative side of this relationship, the slave trade, the colonialism, those are the negative aspects of this relationship. If you want to focus on that one, it dampens your spirit. But beyond those negative aspects of the relationship, there are other positives, like I enumerated when I said the things that tie businesses in Africa and Europe together. The business structures, the business norms, the business guidelines, the business templates. Those are advantages you can take advantage of. Those are positives that we can take advantage of. So if you want to look at Europe and you want to focus on the negatives, of course, we all agree. Slave trade was a bad news for us. Colonialism was bad news for Africa. They retarded us. They sent us behind. But you can't stay in one place and say you want to kill yourself because of what happened yesterday. You have to look beyond what happened yesterday so that you can move on. You have to look at the difficulties of yesterday, imbibe them, learn lessons from them, and step forward. and all of that. So this whole discussion that I've had about the European African Investors Forum is just one illustration of my presentation about Africa needs to engage Europe a lot more, such that we are not just rushing in our hundreds and thousands to cross the border, to enter Italy, to enter Spain, to enter the UK, and go and work, take menial jobs. Dr. Ngozi was saying, why would a guy with a PhD in Nigeria go and take a job as a cleaner? That's mismatch. Why isn't that university graduate going to go talk to contacts or consultants that have the ears of BNP Paribas and say, you can actually do this in our country, and I can be your point man? Why can't it be that? That's what this conference wants to teach Africa in general, that we can engage Europeans in a far better way than we are doing currently. The way we are engaging Europeans today is too
We still have to have questions. Chief Apechi, we need to, there are many questions for you, sir. So if you can just wrap up so that I can ask questions. With that speaker, there are many questions. I have like 10 questions for you already. And we are going to stop this conference the next 1 hour. So the time is fast spent. And we have the last presenter, Mr. Chinedu.
No problem.
So this is about money.
No problem.
There's money here. All right. Yes. So can you wrap up in 2 minutes so that we can ask? There are many questions here. Anyway, for me, look at my question.
I will wrap up in 2 minutes.
So that we can have like 10 minutes for your discussion. Then we can have the next speaker. Thank you, sir. All right.
Yes, I'll wrap up in a few minutes, in a few seconds, not in 2 minutes. So basically, in a nutshell, my presentation to this summit today is that Africa should find ways to engage Europe in a way that is profitable for us in Africa, and in a way that also is profitable to the Europeans. I've only just used the event we are promoting in Portugal as an example, as an illustration for that. So, and on this note, I'm going to be wrapping up. And once again, I want to thank Mr. Olusoji Ajao for the opportunity that you have extended to me, not just to attend this summit today, but also to be one of the speakers. I really thank you so very much for this. And on that note, I commend the other speakers and I say kudos to all of us who are in the house today for this summit. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I appreciate you. That's a brilliant presentation. And for me, you have like 10 questions already, which you have to answer before you go. You made some generalization. I need to just, that's a point I need to, and it's money. You're talking about money and my health. I live in France, and the first thing I did in France was to open the bank. I had the bank account in Bank Paribas, BNP Paribas. I have a account there. And one of the things they did for us when we got to France, I was on scholarship at school in Paris, was that was you open accounts in Bank Paribas, they'll give you 100 euros. So I went there. All I was saying, Soji, open account in Bank Paribas, 100 euros as a startup. Okay, Dr. Ngozi, I'm coming to you again. So I chopped their 100 euros. Let's use that one. I chopped their 100 euros. So, but my scholarship allowance was paid to Society Generale. So when I open account to Society Generale, they give you, for opening your accounts, they give you money, welcome package. So I chopped that one. I opened the Bank Paribas, I chopped 100 euro. I opened my own scholarship payment was paid to Society Generale. They gave me that one too. I opened another bank too. So all of us African student was going to Paris. And in Nigeria, so I'm using that one to corroborate your point, sir. You are very correct when you said that the money is in Europe waiting for Africa to get. And the interest rates is very, very enticing. That the interest rate is 5%, and they give you moratorium for 1 year, and you pay back in how many years? You will pay back in 4 years. So the money is there. So a graduate from Nigeria, a PhD holder, who now leaves the country and be washing toilets in Europe, is suffering from information. So again, that's actually to the point that lot of information. So it means that this presentation too is not completed. We are still going to come back again. So give us, how can a graduate in Nigeria, you have to give us another presentation that how can we access the funding? Like me, myself, if I can access the funding, I want to go into real estate. there is a massive housing deficit in Lagos, Nigeria. And I want to build that housing sector. I want to go into that sector. So I can see European funds that will give me the money. I want to go into that space. So let me stop now. I'm trying to recap your presentation. And you mentioned that we are close to Europe than China. Yes, we are close to Europe geographically, but in terms of business, we are not close. The Europeans, they take us as subservients. I want to mention that one again. They condescend. But the Chinese man see us as equals. When I was still in France, we are writing a paper with my colleague on informal marketing, street trading in Nigerian market in Africa. And this European guy, I believe that he knows this narrative more than myself. We were having a discussion like this to discuss, to brainstorm on it. He said, "Oh, Olu, your idea is mad. Are you crazy?" I said, "Don't worry. Go and do your term paper by yourself. I'll do my term paper by myself." We went separate ways. I said, I have experiential knowledge. My mom sells on the street in the market in Nigeria before I left for France. And I was telling you that this is the structure of informal economy. The guy said I was not making sense. I said, no problem. It was supposed to be a joint term paper. He went ahead to write his paper. I wrote my own. But you know what? That is the European mentality of condescending. That we Africans, we don't have that cognitive capacity or cognitive bandwidth to learn with them. So the story ended that in that class, I became the best student for that course on urban informal market economy, structure of informal market economy. So because I understand informal market economy myself, I was raised in informal markets. My mom works in informal space. So I understand it experientially, I understand it theoretically, and I understand it by lived experience. So it became my best paper in France during my course. And let me now tell you again, when this problem happened in South Africa again, I read one academic was talking about South Africa business. I said, no, you don't understand this. What you have in South Africa was the problem of informal economy in South Africa, spaza shop owners fighting Nigerian hustlers who are coming to occupy their space in informal space. South Africans are not chasing out Nigerians in the informal sector. They are chasing Nigerians who are working in the informal sector. And that was the framework of analysis. So your presentation, Chief Freddy, is a top-notch presentation. But the solution aspect of it is that the conference coming up in November, we are still going to give us another presentation with PowerPoints that how can I get a loan from banks in Europe. Then from the conference, are we going to now have a direct interface with these banks, with these investors? That's my question for you. So if I come to this conference in November now, what is the assurance that I'm going to interface with bank P&L? As you're actually making your presentation, I was checking my phone. I understand that Mike Adenuga, who started Globalcom in Nigeria, also validating your points, Chief Frederick. Mike Adenuga that started Globalcom in Nigeria. Nigeria has three mobile networks, MTN, Airtel, and Glo. Got the funding from bank BNP Paribas in France. They gave him the loan. And if you check the WhatsApp, I'll share with you the link to that story. So people don't know that Nigeria can get loan from these European countries. And that's what I pick up from your presentation. So if we ever use Glo Network, that money that Macademic used to start Glo Network, he got the loan from BNP Paribas in Paris. So the evidence to that, I'll send to you have to corroborate your point. So it's there. So this conference I see it as a eye opener. It can open our eyes to opportunities in Europe. Europe said they don't understand what they can do to Africa. And I was telling a friend that if you go to a European person, say, I'm starting an NGO to cater for the hungry people in Africa, they'll give you money. But we tell the European man, let's start a business. You see, business, then be skeptical. And again, I want to answer, that's my second question. The first question is that for this your investment conference in Portugal, participants, are they going to meet these bankers who are going to give them this opportunity to raise funding? That's one. The second question is that Dangote Cement, you also mentioned Dangote, that we should cultivate the mindset of Dangote, expansionist mindset. Start in Nigeria, then global. When Dangote started, Dangote was trying to access funding from the funders or investors in Europe and America. They denied him for Dangote refinery. I don't know, maybe because of Dangote refinery. They denied him. Dangote got the money from China because some of the requirements they are putting across to him were too much for him. So what are the requirements for getting loan from these Western investors? So that's the two questions I have for you. Maybe you can know that one. Doctor, do you want to answer that one? Or you take Dr. Ingosi's contribution?
No, let me just take those questions quickly because I have answers to them. If I actually take them as three. The first one, participants at the European African Investor Forum, what do they stand to gain? Are we going to get them to engage with the investors immediately? Yes, that's the whole purpose. But you know, for a conference like this, you are only just...
Can you please rub your camera? Just rub it. Rub it. If you can, just clean it once. Rub your finger on top of it. Just your finger, clean it. Let's see.
Maybe that is why it's blurry.
Just rub your finger, one finger. Let's see what happens.
Okay.
Is it a laptop or a phone?
No, it's actually a smartphone. I use a techno phone. I think it's getting clearer.
It's okay. Keep speaking. Well, I like it. You are passionate about what you are, your presentation. Keep speaking.
Yes. Let me give answers to your question. So, the first one: what will the participant gain if they join us? The registration fee is 360 euros. What will the participant gain? Paying 360 euros, paying for his return ticket, and paying for hotel accommodation for our say. If it's a 3-day event, you'll be thinking about spending 5 nights in Lisbon. What will an entrepreneur gain by joining us in Lisbon for this event? Will he immediately get access to investors? That is what we have created. But everything depends on you. You can bring 20 people. You can invite 20 people to a room where there is a billionaire. One of them will be admiring the billionaire's shoes. Another will be admiring his designer suit. Somebody else will be jittery. Billionaire, I never seen him before. He's salivating and all of that. Another person takes his case directly to him. Sir, please, before you leave this room, I need 2 minutes of your time. And in those 2 minutes, he makes his speech. The billionaire probably doesn't have time for him. He tells him, see one of these guys that is standing next to me. That's one of his aides. That's what we have created this conference. We want African MSMEs to meet European investors. Everything starts from a point, and then you start growing. Many of us in the room today, in this summit today, we are entrepreneurs. The day you start the plant, the day you start the planting, is not the day you harvest it. But come and even begin it. Come and even begin the process. That's why we are inviting you.
All right, let's say the doctor.
Number two, the issue you raised about Dangote, at the end of the day, Europeans, North Americans didn't give him money, it was China that gave him money. Just like I said in my presentation earlier, the Chinese are more predatory. They are also more aggressive. They are more hungry than Europeans. So they will give better terms. But honestly, if you also push Europeans, if you also present a case to win the confidence of Europeans, they will give you the money, maybe in larger volumes, maybe in less stringent terms. It takes sticking in there, making your case, and continuing to drive that case forward. That will be my responses immediately. And other questions that are coming, as those questions come, I will respond to them and then wait for the next set until we finish this session. Then we move to listen to the last speaker of today's summit. Thank you very much, Soji. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Dr. Ngozi, you can take that one. We are going to respect your time. We are not going to go beyond 2 p.m. I promise you. We started on time. And we had a last presentation. Doctor is coming very soon. Mr. Chinedu is a PhD student candidate in Nigeria. So we have to take his presentation. So I will allow Dr. Ngozi to ask the question. Then, Mr. Frederick, Chief Frederick again, I will suggest for this conference, even if the participants might not get the funding there during the Portugal event, let's maybe for the organizer, invite these investors, the bankers, to come for the conference so they can be like a deal-making event. You get my point? So you can actually write, I can support you to write to Bank Paribas. We write to them that come and meet Africans at this conference so that we can actually match make. So that's one thing I would say. You have top bankers in Portugal. You can come there with our funding.
Thank you very
so
much.
it should be like we can even be a corporate sponsor for this event. So don't let us be like
Thank you very much for this.
so that one. Let's
talk about this. We'll talk about this in camera after this summit.
Okay. All right.
Now,
all right. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you very much for keeping it. I really appreciate it. Yep.
All right. Dr. Ngozi, you can go ahead. Dr. Ngozi, you can go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, Chief Apeji, for your passionate presentation. I enjoyed it so much. And I'm also involved in EU-Africa dynamics, but it's in terms of migration. And I have some idea about the involvement of EU in solid minerals in Africa. I have a little ideas, especially in South Africa, Germany, France, Belgium, Netherlands, officially, yeah. But in Nigeria, you find out that China has invested 1.3 billion in solid minerals in Nigeria. You go around, you see Chinese people, especially in Zamfara State, in Nasarawa. You also see Europeans, but Europeans, they never admit that they are involved in extraction of solid minerals in Nigeria. So that means they do it through the back way, so that the people who the solid mineral is living under their ground are not benefiting from it. Probably they've picked some few individuals, settle them, and extract the minerals, So how do you think we can make these things open, officialize, so that the people who these minerals sit under their ground can also benefit from it? If you go to Zamfara State, you understand what I'm talking about. They mess the place up. When I conduct research, I see some of these things. Yes, thank you.
I'm going to take it up right away. The point that you have made is very valid. In fact, a lot of people even feel a lot of these Chinese people, they are behind some of the insurgency and the crisis that we are continuing to witness in the North in general. But let me go into pidgin English. Then say, the person they guard himself before God guard them. We are Nigerians, let me talk about Nigerians for instance, pertaining to these solid minerals. Now we get the solid minerals. Now our country, now in day. If we don't use common sense to protect it from ourselves, others that are coming to exploit it, they will come and exploit it. You spoke very passionately about corruption in Nigeria, about not allowing merit to be at the top. Election is coming on. I'm not APC, I'm not ADC, I'm not Labour Party, I'm not anything. If you don't allow people that want to do merit to come on board, the people that are doing chua-chua will continue to dominate the space. All we can do is to keep appealing to our folks, our people generally speaking, that look, if we don't get our acts together, the people that want to come and exploit it will exploit it. Let me give you an example that is very close to my heart. In my secondary school, I went to secondary school in my hometown. The secondary school was an Anglican secondary school, and then government took it over, and then government gave it back to the Anglican church. Close to 40% of the land of that secondary school has been encroached upon by our same people from my hometown. They have taken those places. If you tell them to give it back to the school today, they will resort to legal cases. Who wants to do law? So the point that I'm making is, we the Nigerians ourselves, we have to jealously guard what belongs to us. Dangote said he wanted to initially put his refinery in Rivers State. Rivers people no allow him. And he tried and tried and tried. He didn't succeed. So he now took everything and brought it to Lagos to come and do. I said, Lagos environment, I understand Lagos. Lagos people understand me. Yoruba people are always embracing me. Let me come and put it in Yoruba land. In a nutshell, the people of River State, South in general, didn't protect what they have. The refinery today that is making waves all over, that has become the biggest supplier of jet fuel to the entire Europe, aviation fuel. The refinery today that is supplying aviation fuel to the whole Europe, number one supplier of aviation fuel to Europe today, is Yoruba land that is benefiting it, not South that owns it. I don't hate Yorubas. I don't hate South. I'm a Nigerian. I'm just saying it to illustrate the point that if you look at Nigeria generally, we tend not to protect what belongs to us. Even those villagers, those communities in Nasarawa State, in Zamfara State, where all these solid minerals have plenty in, do they defend it or do they collaborate with the people that are coming to exploit it anyhow without them benefiting? I'm just citing an example of crude oil now. In River State, the community that Dangote originally wanted to put the refinery is right there in River State. But the people themselves sabotage it. The land of this Lekki refinery alone cost $100 million. That's what Dangote paid to Lagos State government. Who chop at the end of the day? The person who get crude oil, you know, chop refinery. The person who don't get crude oil, now they benefit from refinery. Honestly, when you look at it at a larger point, as Nigeria as a whole, that is usually what we do to ourselves. You yourself, you also even mentioned some things in UNN. You say, look at, this is the same university that I sweat for. This is the same university that I give my all. When it comes to recognizing even that merit from me, they bypass me. They go to people who can't even type one document. You know, so honestly, the solution is we keep advocating for Nigerians. Take what is yours, protect it, guard it jealously, and use it. Until Dangote started refining fuel, we kept misusing our crude oil. When we sell it cheaply, go back and import it expensively. Dangote has stopped all of that now. But there are still some people in the oil mafia that are opposing him. You know, the Nigerian spirit, we jostle among ourselves. At the end of the day, we destroy what belongs to ourselves. We don't need it. You are an Igbo man. I'm from Oyo State. We are brother. You are brother Nigerians. As Nigerians today, we are brothers. Except you and I are competing with each other. Waiting at the follow you drag. Even if I compete with you, sir, you know the Igbo boys for all street for Lagos. All of them, they are selling Mercedes spare parts, Toyota spare parts. All of them the same thing, and everybody they sell. What are you dragging? You know the Yoruba women. All of them they line up on the same street in Balogun Market in Lagos. They are all selling lace material. All of them. They are not selling different things. They are all competing with each other. Yet all of them will sell. You know, so that's the kind of attitude we need to. Healthy competition, if there is competition at all. And that attitude of protecting what belongs to us. So we can take full advantage of it. Until the refinery, we are not taking full advantage of our crude oil.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Chief Obeji, you will come back. Because this one, I don't say you have a lot to say.
No problem at all. No problem. Maybe one or two more questions so they can round up and then we can go to our next and our final presentation for the day.
Let me ask
I'm not just a speaker, I'm also a participant in this summit.
Yes, I know. Dr. Tao, do you have a question for this summit? The person who have to attend this summit, you are a businessman. So people like you, we need you to. I think we have business in 12 countries. Yeah.
I'm trying to save our time because I would definitely be in touch with this big man. We have a lot because good enough. I'm going to be in Europe in the next few weeks, so we need to actually kickstart something physically, tangibly. So that's what I'm going to say now.
All right, thank you very much.
Are you ready to host me?
Definitely.
Oh, he's in Nigeria. He's in Nigeria.
I'm in Nigeria, but God willing,
he's in Nigeria. For the conference, you'll be moving to Portugal in November for the purpose of the conference.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
let's
But
do
So
when you are
for the
there.
whole
And
anyway,
then
I'm based in Nigeria. I'm a Nigerian. Yeah.
yeah, okay.
all right, don't
No,
worry, I will
we'll talk
share,
after tonight.
I will send you his contact so they can have your business.
Yeah.
That's the purpose we are doing this on. We're not just talking. So off camera, I will send his contact, you talk to him and do your business together. All right. So thank you
Yes.
very much. We have the last presenter, Dr. I will call you Doctor. Chinedu, go finish your PhD. I have like chapter 3, last chapter now. Mr. Chinedu, can you open your camera and have your presentation so that we can take you now? Mr. Chinedu,
All right.
for your
Thank you so much.
intervention.
Thank you,
I'm not
Mr.
seeing you
Lucius.
yet. I'm not
Yes,
seeing you yet,
but you
Mr.
can do
Chinedu.
2 different meetings concurrently, and
You are 2 meeting. Okay, all right, go ahead.
just permit me. Um, this notice came to me shortly a while ago, so I actually had to squeeze out time to be here. Even though I may not be making an elaborate presentation, but I will just make few contributions because a whole lot has been said. And I've also listened very keenly from the first presenter, the first speaker to the last. It has been quite insightful, quite eye-opening. Thank you so much. So, first of all, I would like to answer the question with the question. By that I mean, I would like to profile a solution to the problem with the problem itself. In this form, I'll say, how can we build Africa that Africans can live or stay in? How can we build Africa that Africans can live or stay in? I am an academic, and I think in academic forms. Most times, I have also come to understand that each time we bring up an African problem or a problem in Africa, we are often tempted to externalize our solution. By that I mean, when we identify a problem in Africa, call it an African problem, we don't we are not predisposed to look for the solution within the African context. We often fall to the temptation of seeking the solution outside Africa. And in most cases, we often end up not solving the problem but creating another problem entirely. In this regard, we have made very valid points, which I totally agree with. Very, very valid points from the European perspective to the Asian perspective and down to the African perspective. But there is something very, very important. It is a trite saying that if you want to find the best in a country, you go to the military. The military institution in every country is an epitome of the best men of that country. If you want to join the military, they will not enlist you if you have a flat foot, if you have a pot belly, if you don't have a good vision, if you don't hear properly, if you don't run properly. So you have to be nearly a perfect man to be enlisted in the military. More or less, you are the best of the men in that country. So when our soldiers die, it is the best of us that die, more or less. If we transpose this to the discussion we are having, you can also say that it is the best of us that migrate. It is the best of us that leave us. It is the best of us that seek out opportunities in other climes, in Europe, in Asia, and elsewhere. But there is a valid point that was raised here, the need for us to innovate around intra-African mobility. The need for us to innovate around intra-African mobility. The discussion cannot end here because there are a whole lot of contradictions around it. When you look at the fact that the African countries have to get their ass together in the first instance to even attract intra-African mobility. When you take into consideration what happened in South Africa recently, then you begin to question the very basis for regional integration. I like the facts that Dr. Ngozi fleshed out during his presentation. He also looked at the regional frameworks in place for intra-African migration when he mentioned the African Continental Free Trade Area, the African Union Free Movement Protocol, and other regional frameworks and initiatives within ECOWAS and other regional economic communities. However, there are a whole lot of contradictions around intra-African mobility. Most countries of Africa haven't really come to understand the need for us to internalize our solutions. The need for us to look for our solutions within our community. Most African countries haven't come to understand that we have the workforce, we have the manpower, we have the talent, we have the resources to build our communities. And this takes me back to the educational institutions. The educational institutions. How are our curricula structured? Our curricula is essentially Eurocentric. It is essentially Eurocentric. And it is not surprising because the European hegemony of knowledge has made it to be so. If you study international relations in Nigeria, you will graduate knowing Europe more than even Europeans. You know Europe more than even Europeans, that you will even stay in Nigeria and write a thesis about Europe, describing Europe in such a way that even the person in Europe does not even know. But you know little about Ghana, about Togo, about Libya, about Zimbabwe, about Tanzania, etc., etc. So from the four walls of the university, you are already being groomed. You're already being trained. You're already being nurtured to transfer your competencies, your capabilities to Europe. So that the moment you graduate, you are looking for opportunities to japa to Europe. Because that is where you have been mentally framed, you have been mentally conditioned to know. It is also very interesting that within the European curricula, there is sufficient knowledge of the activities in Europe available to the European student, such that when you compare that with the intra-EU mobility, you see that, for example, it is quite shocking that intra-EU mobility is as significant as the extra-EU mobility, because there is knowledge of EU amongst EU citizens, which is even lacking within African regional initiatives. All these things are just in papers for academics to read. People within Africa, it is high time we begin to think of how do we know ourselves better? How do we revise our educational curricula to sufficiently give our people the knowledge they need to operate, to succeed within Africa? What is quite interesting is that when you look at the migration dynamics, you see that Africans, even migrating to other African countries, are on transit. They're on transit to Europe. Europe is more like the destination. The African countries, inter-African immigration is transitory. It is transitory because the destination still remains Europe. And it will remain transitory in the long term because even our leaders, the political leadership haven't come to understand what needs to be done. So it is important we take this conversation beyond just the speeches we are giving here. It is important we begin to look at how do we operationalize some of these ideas we are throwing out here. How do we operationalize some of these ideas we have thrown out here? So I'm so grateful for this opportunity. I'm quite enlightened listening to the conversation thus far, and I believe we will move beyond just the talk thing and then see how we can take this further. Ambassador is here. Ambassador has a very strong political connection. And I also thank Mr. Akweji, who has a very strong business connection too, with the structures in place. So we can begin to see, how we can have a multi-sectoral approach, how we can operationalize these ideas. Thank you so much, Mr. Olusoji.
Thank you, Chinedu. Thank you, Mr. Chinedu, for that charge to action. I would say it's about thought to action. And again, as I want to say that we are still going to come back again, because this platform is actually for three focus. We invite tech leaders, business leaders, and investors. That's what we are doing here. These are the three categories. And when they come here, they talk together and brainstorm on solutions, what they can do. And Dr. Taiwo was just telling me before we started this program that he's building an hotel in Lagos here. And that's what we want. We want people to come and invest in the country of their origin. So somebody complained, China is doing it. What are you doing? They say China is taking it cheap. What are you doing yourself? So before you can blame China for taking cheap, something like that on the continent, what are you doing for your country by yourself? So don't ask what the country is not doing for you. Let's ask what we can do for our country. All right. Thank you so much for the charge. And again, I'll say that we are not here to just talk. We're here to take action. And I like the word operationalize. So, and one thing again is that we cannot keep on waiting until African leaders, they take actions. We ourselves, we ask, what steps can we take? As we are talking about, we have border problem, we can still take actions by ourselves to do business, even within the existing framework. Despite that, Dangote requires TH visas to move across the continent, and he's still doing his business. Dangote will not say, oh, if they don't open the borders, I will not continue with my business. He's still doing it. All right. So basically, we are still going to continue to do our best, and we believe that best will surely come to us. All right. Thank you very much. And for the participants, other people who have not spoken, there's a form here, attendance form. Please do well to fill the attendance form so that you can get invitation to attend our subsequent event. So now I will really ask our speakers. I will start from the Prof to give a closing remark. From there, I'll move on to Dr. Ngozi. And those who want to say something about what the last speaker said, we can do that. Let's have a closing remark now for everybody. So final word from everybody. Then, Dr. Ngozi, please share your presentation. Do you mind if I share it on LinkedIn? If somebody wants it, they can download it. I can give them Google Drive to download it if they want to download it. Okay, all right. Thank you.
I'll send to you.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so let's start with Dr. Ngozi. Closing remark, please, from this summit. What's your closing remark, your closing thoughts? Yeah.
Okay, I didn't have the opportunity to ask some questions to the scholar Chinedu, but it's okay. What I'm thinking is that he said
you can do it. You can do it. You still have time. You can do it. You have a question. Ask a question. Yes.
Okay. Just there is this Eurocentric approach in Nigerian universities that unless you have impact factor papers before you get promotions, or some professors, some people will not get their professorship unless they they publish in high impact factor journals. So I'm trying to ask question how, when we are talking about our system being too Eurocentric, how can we get rid of all these type of shenanigans that keep our people down and they're underdeveloped, And my final remarks is just to mention that we in Africa, we don't migrate because we are poor. People don't migrate. It is way of life. Migration is not a problem in Africa, like the Europeans see it, that it is a problem for them. It is not. People migrate. People go to cross the border from Nigeria to Niger, from Nigeria to Benin. By the way, before these borders existed, these people were living in one communities. Then before this border separated them as different communities. So we don't have problem with borders. And people don't migrate just because they are poor. They migrate for socioeconomic activities, for religious activities. Some migrate for adventures. So, and making Africa a place that Africans will stay instead of migrating and leaving the place in a desperate manner, we should make sure that our mindset is reoriented, that Europe and North America are not heavens. When we go to Europe, when we go to North America, we must have plans what we are going there to do. Are we going there to make adventure and look what is in that place? Are we going to get education? Are we going to do whatever we want to do? But later on, we have to come back to Africa to implement what we have learned, to implement what we have gotten. This is how Iranians are developing. Iranians travel, they come back to Iran to develop Iran. You know, Chinese people, they travel, they come back to China to develop. Indians, the same thing. So we must also imbibe that in our migration during our migration processes, our migration journey, that we are going to learn and bring back to Africa to develop Africa. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Ngozi. I really appreciate your perspective. So, just very quickly, I want to respond to the puzzle you raised concerning the Europeanization of our thought process as Africans, and why our curricula remains highly Eurocentric. Okay, so what can we do as individuals? What can we do? Now, I still want to fall back to uh, the thoughts of Ambassador Dr. Tao. I don't want to murder your name, sir, because there were some concerns you raised. We need to retreat. We need to retreat, and we need to do what we can in our individual capacities. In our individual capacities. Okay. As an academic, I have come to the understanding that I can make my impact in my little forms. Anywhere I find myself, in anything I do, when I write, my writing is Afrocentric. My positions are often Afrocentric because the Eurocentric perspective you are talking about is a European form created by Europeans. And when you adopt it, you can, that's what the Chinese did. That's what the Chinese did. They learned by emulation, by imitation. There are things we can learn from Europe and localize it. Okay? It mustn't have to be hook, line, and sinker. There are things we can learn and localize. That is why I love the perspective that Mr. Akpiji also took when he said we can go there, take some of these incentives from them, then come back and use it to develop ourselves. So we can actually localize some of these Eurocentric ideas. For example, I'll tell you a personal story. When I joined academics a decade ago, I was lucky. I was lucky because I had around me, because what I did and I succeeded in doing it was partly because of luck. And the luck is based on the fact that the people I had around me, the dean, my HOD, and the VC were people who had a different perspective from the traditional Nigerian academic society community. I mean, now what happened? I was given a course to teach in international relations. So I discovered that there wasn't really anything that spoke to international relations in Africa. So the whole curriculum was entirely externalized. It was purely European. From Westphalia down to the United Nations. Okay? And that is, you can imagine the generation of Africans that were, taught with that sort of curriculum. You get it. So you don't get to know that Nigeria has an international relations with Togo. You don't get to know that Nigeria has an international and economic relations with Ghana, with Libya, with Kenya. Do you understand me? With South Africa, etc., etc. So how do you produce future leaders that have the African vision? Do you get my point? How do you produce people? How do you produce people who think, that, yeah, we need to live in Africa. We need to build Africa. We need to build an Africa where Africans can live. You can't, because that's the whole genesis of the argument of decoupling. Why we need to decolonize. We need to decolonize our curricula. We need to decolonize the way we approach some of our problems. We don't have to always externalize our solutions. So what I did was that I introduced the course, and I developed that course from design to delivery. The international relations of African states. That's the title of the course. The international relations of African states. And it went to say it was adopted, and it's still being taught till today. Do you get me? And it was quite insightful to see the robust engagement that African nations actually have beyond just what where the documents will speak to our interaction with Europe, with Americas, and etc., etc. That is what you find in the mainstream literature. Okay? So we need to also begin to create our mainstream argument. That is why this conversation is very important. The mainstream argument should also be, we should begin to look for African solutions for African problems. What is Kenya doing in the tech that Nigeria can leverage on? Not necessarily what Sweden is doing in the tech that Nigeria needs to leverage. What is Kenya doing in the tech that Nigeria can leverage? What is Nigeria doing in agriculture that Togo can leverage? What is Tanzania doing in health? What is South Africa doing in health that Nigeria can leverage? Do you understand me? So by the time we begin to look at these aspects, then I believe we actually will have a proper and well-framed African vision. Thank you so much, and I submit at this point. Thank you.
So the closing remark. Thank you so much. Everything comes back to what Ambassador Tao told us, that we have to change our mindset to decolonize our thinking and see what we can do for ourselves. All right, Ambassador, you have the mic now. Let's have your closing remark as well.
If I concluded here that do what pleases you at the end of the day. Do what makes you happy. At the end of the day, I concluded here that if there is any way as an individual person or collectively to work together to make Africa and Africans a place where we want to live, let's do it together. at the end of the day, don't mind the situation around you, or don't mind what I say, because what I say may not make sense to you. Do what pleases you and do what makes you happy, with the consciousness or the fact that live and let others live. And together, I believe, collaboratively, we can make Africa and Africans a joyful people on this earth. Thank you all for listening to me.
Thank you very much. I think for my end, my closing remark will be centered on this summit itself. I know when I started my presentation, I took pains to commend Mr. Olusoji Ajao, who is the convener of this program. And I also said that if we outgrow him, I don't want that outgrow him to start in 5 years. I don't want to start in 12 months. I don't want to start in 6 weeks' time. I want to start between now and our next summit, which is coming up the following Saturday. I want us to take full ownership of this weekly summit that Soji has brought to the table for us. It's like church service on Sunday. If you're a Christian, every Sunday you go to church. If you're a Muslim, every Friday you go for Jummah. It is something that will transform so many people. This summit today, I know what I've benefited. Today, I know what I've benefited. To once again commend Soji Ajao for initiating this, and to encourage the rest of us who participated today to find one way or the other to support this program so that I can get bigger and get better. Thank you all very much, and God bless.
Amen.
Sir, thank you so much for the encouragement. I appreciate that. I appreciate. We just started with short notice. All of you responded. I appreciate your support so much. Thank you so much. Without your support, this will not be possible. Thank you very much. So actually, we do that. We do this every week. So next Saturday again, we are going to do this one again, and I'll make the link regular so that you can you don't have to be getting the link every time. So once you click on the link, you are here. And again, this presentation is already also available on YouTube. You can watch it again. And maybe when we have other staff who are going to work with us, we are going to actually get this one short, like a 1 minute video from the presentation you have made so far today. Thank you so much. So on behalf of my team and everybody, all the keynote speakers, Dr. Ngozi and Chief Frederick Akweji, and my good friend, Chinedu, Mr. Chinedu, thank you so much for spending your time. Thembi Ogunlade, thank you so much for staying this long. Favor Ogunlade too, and there was a lady that joined us earlier before. She has dropped off, but everybody, thank you so much for joining us. So I will share the link with you on YouTube. You can rewatch and get educated. And again, I'll put it with your citation of the presenters, our keynote speaker. I'll put them on YouTube for description. All of you can check on it. So let's keep the conversation going. And I believe our discussion today is going to now materialize and operational. We are going to operationalize our action or our discussion today, according to Mr. Chinedu, able to operationalize our thoughts and decolonize our mind. Thank you once again, everyone. Have a nice weekend. Bye bye. Thank you so much. All right. Bye bye. Thank you. So if you're available, join us next week as well. We're available every week. I'll share the link. Can see you the link again. Thank you, everyone. And that's all. Thank you. That's it. Thank you.